She was his enemy's daughter and his greatest obsession. This is Taken by the Dawn, an original full-length Mafia romance audiobook. Buckle up for betrayal, bloodlines, and one possessive alpha who takes what's his. Chapter 1. One Last Night. Tia Romanoff didn't usually drink tequila, but tonight was about breaking rules. The bass throbbed through the Eden Lounge like a pulse matching the beat of her racing heart. It wasn't just the music, or the flashing lights, or the way the club vibrated under her heels. It was the knowledge that this night, this moment, was her last taste of freedom. 1 week from now, she'd be a married woman. A deal sealed in blood and vodka between her father and a man she barely knew. But tonight, she was just Tia. Not the daughter of Victor Romanoff. Not the carefully guarded, cosseted heiress to a Mafia throne. Just a girl in a dangerously short emerald green dress, swaying on the dance floor with her friends and pretending the world wasn't closing in around her. "Another round," Natalie shouted, holding up her glass like a trophy. "Last one," Tia called over the music, laughing. Daniela, ever the devil on her shoulder, leaned in. "You're getting married, babe. That means no more sin. Might as well overdose tonight." Tia rolled her eyes. "I'm marrying a mob lieutenant, not joining a convent." But the joke rang hollow. From the mezzanine above the dance floor, hidden in shadow, Zane Valenti watched her. She didn't know he was there. Didn't know her every move. The sway of her hips, the tilt of her head when she laughed, had been tracked for weeks. Zane wasn't a man who left things to chance. When he took something, it was because he planned it, prepared for it, obsessed over it. And he'd been planning this for years. He studied the way she danced, uninhibited but not reckless. Her friends were drunk, but she was in control. Every movement was calculated but effortless, confident, unaware. That would change. "Is that her?" Luca asked behind him, sipping whiskey. Zane nodded slowly, never taking his eyes off her. "Tia Romanoff. She doesn't know who you are? She will." He handed Luca his glass. "Get the car. Pull it around back. We move in 15. Luca didn't ask why. He never did. Zane's gray eyes stayed locked on Tia as she laughed and tossed her hair over her shoulder. A princess dancing on the edge of a cliff, not knowing the earth was about to fall out beneath her. She'd rejected him earlier in the night when he approached at the bar. He had walked up, offered her a drink, and she'd barely spared him a glance before shaking her head. "No thanks," she'd said, turning away. She didn't know who he was. Didn't know the moment she said no, her life stopped being hers. Tia stumbled into the corridor behind the lounge, needing a moment to breathe. The lights, the noise, the claustrophobic press of bodies, it was too much. She leaned against the cool wall, closing her eyes. That's when she felt it, a presence. Not loud, not overt, but powerful, like the stillness before a storm. She opened her eyes and saw him, the man from the bar. He was taller than she remembered, easily over 6 feet. Broad shoulders, dark hair swept back, suit tailored to perfection, and those eyes, piercing gray, cold but electric. He stepped closer. "Lost?" he asked. She straightened. "No. You walked away earlier. I wasn't interested." He smiled slowly, but there was no warmth in it. "You are now." Tia stiffened. "Back off." "No." She moved to step around him. He shifted. "I said no," she repeated, voice rising. "I heard you." He reached into his jacket, not for a weapon, but for something small, metallic. She flinched anyway. Before she could react, she felt a sharp pinch at her neck. She gasped. What did you—" The world tilted. Her legs gave out. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was his face, calm, expressionless, as everything went dark. When Tia woke, she was in a bed far too soft to be a hospital's. She sat up too fast. The room spun. Her head throbbed. Luxury surrounded her, stone walls, velvet curtains, a fireplace, leather furniture, but it felt like a cage. No windows, one door, locked. She climbed out of bed on unsteady legs and yanked at the handle. Nothing. Panic bloomed. Then the door opened, and he walked in. Same suit, same cold eyes. Tia backed away. What the hell is this? Where am I?" "Safe," he said. "I was at a club. You were with friends, now you're with me." She stared. "Who are you?" "Zane Valenti." The name hit her like ice water. She knew that name. Everyone in New York did. The man who ran the Valenti syndicate, the Don, brutal, untouchable, mythical. She stammered. "You're a mobster? Murderer? Monster?" He stepped closer. "Pick one." She moved to the far side of the room, heart pounding. "Why am I here?" Zane's gaze never left hers. Because your father killed my sister, Tia blinked. What? He ordered the hit. She was 20, college student, innocent. He had her gunned down in a parking lot to send a message. Her stomach churned. I didn't know. Of course not. He kept you locked in a gilded cage, but now you'll understand. Understand what? What it's like to lose control, to lose freedom, to suffer. Her jaw clenched. So I'm what? Revenge bait? Zane stepped close, so close she had to tilt her chin up to look at him. You're mine? Her heart hammered. You can't keep me here. He smiled. I already am. And just like that, he turned and walked out, leaving her standing in a prison made of silk and fear. And something else. Heat. Chapter 2. The Stranger and the No Zane. Valenti watched the city burn beneath his feet. Not in flames yet, but in secrets, lights, and the quiet chaos only a man like him could feel. From the 78th floor of his midtown penthouse, he stood at the floor-to-ceiling window and lit a cigarette he wouldn't smoke, staring at the skyline like a general before war. Tia Romanoff was in his guest suite, behind steel-reinforced doors, beneath surveillance cameras, and under the illusion of time. She'd wake soon. The sedative he used would wear off gently, and when it did, she'd open her eyes in his world. Not her father's, not her own. His. Luca approached behind him, voice low. You want updates? Zane didn't look away from the glass. Talk. Security perimeter's tight, no heat from the Russians yet. Her phone's fried, GPS wiped. We planted a text to cover her absence. Girl's trip to Boston. She's not going back, Zane said. No, boss, Luca said, pausing, but she's Romanoff's only daughter. He'll come for her. Zane finally turned, gray eyes cool. That's the point. Tia stirred to soft sheets and the whisper of silence. Her throat was dry, her head pounded. When she sat up, it hit her all at once, the memory like a blow, the nightclub, the man, the cold voice in her ear. Zane Valenti. She looked around. The room was too beautiful to be a prison, but a prison nonetheless. Black marble floors, a fireplace too clean to be used, velvet drapes drawn back to a view of steel and sky. There was no door handle on the inside. She was trapped. A moment later, the door clicked and opened, and in he walked. Zane Valenti, living myth nightmare in a three-piece suit. His shirt was unbuttoned at the throat, and the ink at his collar teased something darker underneath. He looked carved from concrete and fire. Tia pushed off the bed and stood, wobbling. What the hell did you do to me? You passed out, he said smoothly. Stress, probably. Bullshit, she snapped. You drugged me. Zane gave her a slow smile. I prefer the word sedated, less messy than dragging you through a club screaming. I want my phone, he raised an eyebrow. I want my clothes, my keys. Princess, he said, voice silk and steel. You're not going anywhere. She froze. What do you want? Zane took a step forward. What I want, he said, is to watch your father bleed. Tia blinked. My father? Zane nodded once. Victor Romanoff murdered my sister. He ordered a hit, called it business, and buried her in a parking lot. Tia's lips parted. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, he snapped, eyes suddenly hard. He keeps you pampered and pretty, a puppet in a dress, passed around like a deal in stilettos. She flinched. You're lying, she whispered. He reached into his jacket and tossed a photo on the bed. A girl. Young. Beautiful. Blood blooming across her white dress, her eyes wide open, staring at nothing. My sister, Zane said. Alessia. She was 20. Tia's hands shook as she picked up the photo. Why show me this? Because now you know why you're here. I'm going to dismantle your father's empire, and you're going to help me do it. Her mouth opened in protest, but he raised a finger. You can resist. I'll still win, but it'll hurt more for both of us. Tia's spine straightened. I'm not helping you. Zane stepped closer, gaze raking over her. No, but you'll break. They always do. Something about the way he said it, cold, certain with that edge of hunger, made her shiver. She didn't doubt his cruelty, but she also didn't doubt the heat beneath it. Why not just kill me, she whispered. Zane's smile was a slash of menace, because death is too kind. I want your father to suffer. And you? You're how I start. He turned to leave. You're sick, she said. Zane paused at the door. No, I'm patient and very, very thorough. The door clicked shut behind him, and she was alone again. He watched her through the camera feed. She paced, fists clenched, whispering curses under her breath. Not sobbing, not begging, good. He liked them fiery. Luca appeared behind him again. So what's the endgame, boss? She breaks, Romanoff bleeds, and I get my sister's justice. Luca crossed his arms. And if she's not just some pawn, Zane's jaw tightened, then she'll burn with the rest of them. Later that night, he returned. Tia hadn't eaten. The untouched tray sat on the table, the steam long gone. Zane shut the door behind him. Eat. I'm not hungry. He walked to the table and lifted a fork. Don't make me feed you. She gave him a look. I dare you. He dropped the fork, walked to her, and in a blink had her pinned against the wall again, body towering over hers. Her breath caught as he caged her in with an arm. Keep testing me, he growled. Find out how far I'll go. Is that what this is? She whispered. Power games? Do you get off on this? Zane's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. I get off on control, and you've never had any. Tia's cheeks flushed with fury and something else she couldn't name. He leaned in, lips barely brushing her ear. But I can show you what it feels like to be wanted, even if you hate me for it. Then he stepped back, leaving her breathless and burning. Eat, he said again, voice quiet. Last warning. He left. Tia stood frozen, her body betrayed her, her breath trembled, and for one horrifying second she wondered what it would feel like to let him win, to submit, to be taken. Chapter 3. The Rules of the Cage. Tia didn't sleep. The room was dark, save for the cold glow of Manhattan beyond the window. She curled beneath the sheets, still in the same green dress from the club, heart pounding in her chest like it might break free. Time passed in silence. No one came. No sound, just her thoughts and the chilling certainty that she was in the hands of a man who didn't bluff. Zane Valenti didn't need to raise his voice to command fear. He didn't need to shout or hit or threaten. He just was the threat. And somehow that made it worse. In her father's world, men barked orders and threw punches to feel powerful. But Zane, he owned the room without lifting a finger. He didn't react, he decided, and that scared her more than any gun ever had. When the door finally clicked open the next morning, she was already on her feet, jaw set, spine straight. He walked in wearing black slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No jacket, no tie, still deadly. He held a tray of food, eggs, toast, fruit, coffee. He set it down on a nearby table without a word and turned to her. You should eat. She folded her arms. I'm not hungry. Zane gave her a look that wasn't quite amusement. That line won't work with me. I'm not playing a game. No, he said, his voice low. You're living in one. He stepped closer. And if you want to survive it, you'll follow the rules. She held her ground. What rules? Zane circled her like a predator, slow and deliberate. Rule 1, you speak only when spoken to. Rule 2, you don't leave this room unless I say so. Rule 3, he stopped behind her and she felt the warmth of his breath against her neck. You will obey me, every command, without question. Tia turned sharply to face him. You really think I'll just, what? Sit here and let you control me like some hostage doll? I don't think, he said. I know. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. Because every time you look at me, you're wondering what I'll do next. She hated that he was right. She hated that her body reacted to him, that heat bloomed under her skin when he got too close, that her breath hitched when his voice dipped low. He wasn't just dangerous, he was temptation with a death wish. Zane stepped back and nodded toward the table. Eat. You'll need your strength. For what? She asked. For the next lesson. She didn't move. He tilted his head. You want me to feed you? Her stomach growled, traitorously loud. Zane smirked. I'll take that as a yes. He walked to the table, picked up a fork, and stabbed a piece of scrambled egg. Then he turned to her. Tia's lips parted. You're not serious. I'm very serious. I can feed myself. Then do it. She hesitated, then marched over, snatched the fork from his hand, and sat. She ate slowly, never breaking eye contact. Every chew felt like a standoff. Zane watched her, arms crossed, as if he were studying a new weapon he intended to master. When she finished, he walked over and took the tray. As he moved to the door, she spoke. You said my father killed your sister. He paused. Why now? She asked. Why not go after him directly? Why me? Zane looked over his shoulder. Because Victor Romanoff doesn't care about blood, but he cares about his image, and when the world sees his daughter chained to the man he hates most, he smiled coldly, he'll break. Tia's throat went dry. You're using me. No, he said softly. I'm owning you. And then he was gone. She threw the tray at the door 10 minutes later. The crash echoed like a war cry. Zane watched the footage in his office, sipping espresso. Her tantrum amused him. She was fire, too spirited to submit quickly, too proud to beg. He didn't want her broken easily. He wanted her slowly unraveled, piece by piece, layer by delicious layer. Luca walked in and dropped a folder on the desk. Her engagement was scheduled for Thursday. Formal party, over 24 of Victor's men attending. Zane flipped it open. Dmitri Crane's face stared back at him, ruthless, cold, arrogant. Exactly the kind of soldier Victor favored. Pull strings, Zane said. Crash the party, no survivors. Luca raised an eyebrow. You want her to know? Zane looked at the camera feed. Tia paced her room like a lioness in a cage. Not yet. That night, Zane returned. She was curled on the chaise lounge, wearing a long black t-shirt, one of his, he realized, with a flicker of something he didn't want to name. She sat up. Am I allowed to speak now? He walked in. Say something interesting, and I'll let you keep talking. She stood. What happens to me? He blinked. You live, if you follow orders. And if I don't? He stepped close, voice like a blade. You'll wish you had. Tia's pulse spiked. She should hate him. She did hate him, but she couldn't ignore the part of her that burned under his gaze, that craved the danger like a moth to flame. You think you own me, she said quietly. Zane smiled, and then, slowly, deliberately, he reached out and touched her chin with 2 fingers. I do own you. Her breath caught, and for a terrifying, intoxicating moment, she believed him. Chapter 4. Leverage. Tia Romanoff didn't recognize herself in the mirror. She stood in the ensuite bathroom of the penthouse suite, clutching the marble countertop with trembling fingers. The girl staring back at her wasn't the composed socialite who attended charity galas in floor-length gowns, smiling for cameras she didn't care about. This girl wore nothing but a borrowed black t-shirt, hair messy, eyes rimmed with red from a night of pacing and silent rage. This girl looked trapped, but not weak. Tia had been raised among wolves. She knew how to bare her teeth. And if Zane Valenti thought he could keep her like some decorative piece in a gilded cage, he was going to learn what Romanoff blood really meant. She wiped her face, straightened her shoulders, and marched back into the bedroom. The tray of breakfast was waiting again. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee. This time, she ate, slowly, methodically. Not because he'd told her to, but because she needed to think. And hunger clouded judgment. If she was going to survive, she'd have to be smarter than him. She wasn't just going to outlast the Don, she was going to outplay him. Zane stood in the gym downstairs, fists pounding into the leather bag like the beat of war drums. Sweat dripped from his forehead, his chest bare, tattooed and scarred. Each strike was controlled, deliberate. His sister's face flashed in his mind, her smile, the blood pooling under her body. Then came Victor's face. Zane's fists landed harder, faster. A sharp breath behind him broke the rhythm. He turned. Tia stood at the doorway, arms crossed. The shirt she wore barely covered the tops of her thighs. Her green eyes were defiant, but something deeper simmered underneath. Curiosity, maybe even fascination. Lost, princess? He asked, grabbing a towel. You don't lock the bedroom door anymore, she said coolly. Thought I'd explore. Zane grinned. Bold. You think you're free now? I think you want me to think I am. He liked that. The bite in her voice, the fire that refused to die. You're clever, he said, walking toward her, towel over his shoulder. But you're still mine. She didn't flinch as he came close. What does that mean exactly? She asked. Am I your prisoner? Your pet? Or are you too twisted to know the difference? Zane leaned in, his breath hot against her cheek. Your leverage. Tia's blood ran cold. Your bait, he continued, voice low. But you're also the fuse. When your father sees what I've done to his perfect little girl, he'll come running, and I'll tear him apart. Then kill me now, she spat. If that's all I am. His fingers curled under her chin, tilting her face up. No, he whispered, because watching you change, watching you crave me, even while you fight it, that's better than death. She yanked her face away, her heart thundering in her ears. You're sick, Zane only smiled. You'll be sicker by the time I'm done. The hours dragged like weights. Tia read, prowled, thought. Zane left her alone for most of the day, but she knew it was calculated. The cameras reminded her she was never truly by herself. Her moments, her movements, they were all part of the game now. By nightfall, she was restless, so when the door opened again and he stepped in, she didn't retreat. Zane held something in his hand. A phone. Tia's heart leapt. My phone? Oh, he said. Yours is gone. Burned. This is mine, and you're going to make a call. She stiffened. To who? Your fiancé. Tia's skin crawled. Dimitri? Yes, you're going to tell him the wedding's off, that you're leaving, that he's not to come looking for you. She blinked. And if I don't? Zane's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then I'll send him a video he'll never forget. Her throat tightened. You wouldn't. He stepped closer, voice cool and terrifying. You don't know what I would do. Not yet. Tia's fists clenched. He won't believe me. Zane handed her the phone. Then make him believe it. She stared at the screen, blinking as the familiar number rang. Her fingers trembled. On the third ring, he answered. Tia? She swallowed. Dimitri, it's me. Where the hell are you? Your friend said Boston, but you didn't check in. Your father is losing his mind. I'm not coming back, she said, cutting him off. Tell him that. I'm not going to marry you. I never wanted to. A pause. What the hell are you talking about? I'm leaving, Dimitri. For good. I've met someone else. Zane's eyes met hers, sharp and unreadable. You're joking, Dimitri said, voice rising. You think you can just disappear? You think Victor's going to let that slide? I don't care what he thinks, she lied. I'm done. Silence. Then Dimitri's voice turned cold. You're going to regret this. The line went dead. Tia lowered the phone, shaking. Zane took it from her, his fingers brushing hers. Well done. I didn't do it for you, she said bitterly. No, he said. You did it to stay alive. Smart girl. Then he leaned down and whispered against her skin. That earned you a reward. Before she could speak, he turned and left, taking the phone with him. Tia sat on the edge of the bed long after he was gone, her stomach twisted with guilt, fury, and something far worse. Excitement. Why did his approval feel like oxygen? Why did his touch linger like a brand? She hated him, but a part of her wanted more, and that terrified her more than anything. Chapter 5. The Test. Zane stood in the center of his office, staring at the chessboard on the glass table. He didn't play for fun, he played to win. Every piece, every sacrifice, it all served the endgame. The king survived, no matter the blood it cost. Tia Romanoff wasn't a pawn. No, she was something else, a queen in a game where he didn't intend to share the throne. Luca entered without knocking. You got movement. Zane didn't glance up. Talk. Dimitri's en route to Victor's estate. Heated, doesn't believe she left voluntarily. Word is he's preparing a retaliation strike. Zane smiled without humor. Let him come. Luca hesitated. She passed the call test. What's next? Zane moved a knight forward. Now we see if she's willing to bleed. Tia hadn't eaten dinner. Again, her stomach was tight with nerves. She'd made the call, sold the lie, but every second afterward had been one long tremor of doubt. Dimitri was brutal, yes, but her father? Her father wouldn't take this quietly. She stared at the untouched tray of food by the window. When the door opened, she didn't look up. Zane stepped inside, silent as ever. Dressed in black again. He wore it like war paint. You're quiet tonight, he said. I'm tired. You're lying. She sighed and met his gaze. Of course I'm lying. You kidnapped me. Zane crossed the room in 3 long strides and stopped beside her chair. And yet, you're still here. Still breathing. Still wearing my shirt. She flushed. You gave me nothing else. He smirked. If you want something different, you only have to ask. Is that what you think this is? She snapped. A dress-up game? Zane tilted his head. No, that starts now. He reached behind him and pulled a box from under his arm, set it on the table in front of her. Black velvet. Heavy. Tia frowned. What is that? Your next choice. She hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside was a collar. Elegant. Black leather. Thin gold accents. No padlock, but no ambiguity either. Her pulse skipped. You're kidding? Zane sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees. No, I told you, this is a game of obedience, of trust. You're not here just to rot in a room, Tia. You're here to become mine. I'm not your pet. You're not anything yet, he said coolly, but you will be. She slammed the box shut. No. Zane nodded once. Then the room stays locked, the books, the food, the light. Gone. Until you ask to wear it. Her stomach turned. You're insane. He stood, calm and lethal. I'm a man who gets what he wants. You think I haven't broken stronger than you? She rose, meeting him chest to chest. I'm not one of your soldiers, Zane. No, he murmured, eyes dark. You're something far more dangerous. The tension stretched between them like a live wire. Then Zane reached out, slow, deliberate, and tucked a loose curl behind her ear. "You'll come to me eventually." Begging for the leash, his voice dropped. "And when you do, I'll teach you what it means to belong." She slapped him, hard. Zane didn't flinch. For a moment, silence. Then, to her horror, he smiled. Not in mockery, but in approval. "There she is," he said softly. "I was starting to miss that fire." He turned and walked out, leaving her alone with the collar and the terrifying realization that she didn't throw it away. Hours passed. Tia didn't sleep. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, the box untouched but not out of sight. He was pushing her, testing her limits. She didn't know what scared her more, his cruelty or the way he read her so easily. Like he knew she wanted to fight, but also wanted to give in. She didn't want to wear the collar. But she wanted his eyes on her again, his approval, his attention. She was losing herself. And it was happening faster than she expected. Zane watched from the surveillance screen as she sat in the center of the room, unmoving. He saw the way her fingers traced the edge of the velvet box, saw the indecision in every muscle of her body. She was close. Closer than she realized. "She won't last another day," he murmured. Luca raised an eyebrow. "You want her begging?" "No," Zane said. "I want her willing." He sipped his drink, eyes locked on the screen. "She thinks this is about control, but I'm teaching her worship." At sunrise, Tia stood. She walked to the box and opened it again. The collar gleamed in the early light. She didn't cry, didn't break. She just stared and whispered, to no one but herself, "You don't win. I choose." She closed the box again, but didn't put it away. She left it on the bed, waiting. Chapter 6. Lines You Don't Cross. Tia woke to silence. No breakfast tray, no footsteps, no knock on the door, just the box on the bed, still open, the collar untouched, and the weight of her own thoughts pressing down on her like chains. She hated the man, despised everything he stood for. Zane Valenti was the embodiment of everything she'd been taught to fear and avoid. But after only a few days in his world, she wasn't sure who she hated more, him or herself, because she couldn't stop thinking about his hands. Not the way they hurt, the way they restrained, controlled, owned, and worse, how part of her wanted to be owned. She hadn't worn the collar, but she hadn't thrown it away either. That scared her more than anything. She ran her hands over her face, trying to shake the heat rising under her skin. This wasn't her. She wasn't the kind of woman who surrendered, not to anyone. And yet here she was, still in his shirt, still thinking about what it would feel like to kneel at his feet. Downstairs, Zane was silent, brooding. He sat at the head of a long, empty table in the dining hall, one hand wrapped around a glass of water, the other closed in a tight fist. "She's close," Luca said from the side. "But if you push too hard, you'll snap her instead of bending her." Zane didn't look at him. "She's not like the others." "No shit. She's Romanoff's daughter, but she doesn't move like him, doesn't think like him. She doesn't lie like he does." Luca hesitated. "And you're wondering if she can be trusted?" "I'm wondering if I want to trust her," Zane replied. He leaned back, the edges of a frown tightening his usually unreadable face. "She's starting to look at me like she wants to know more. That's dangerous." "For her or for you?" Zane didn't answer, because he wasn't sure. Tia heard the knock late that afternoon. Her head snapped toward the door. It opened slowly. A woman entered, tall, striking, red dress, high cheekbones, cold smile. Not a maid, not security. Danger. "Hello, princess," the woman purred. Tia stood instinctively. "Who are you?" "I'm Catalina. I work with Zane." Tia narrowed her eyes. "Work how?" Catalina walked further into the room, heels clicking on the marble floor like a metronome. "Intimately." Tia stiffened. "You're lying." "Am I?" She sat in the chair across from the bed and crossed her legs slowly. "You think you're the first girl Zane's taken? The first little pet he's decided to play with?" "I'm not a pet. You're not even a challenge." Catalina smiled like a blade. "You're just bait." Tia's fists clenched. "Why are you here?" she asked. Catalina leaned in. "To warn you. Don't mistake attention for affection. You're here because Zane wants revenge. Nothing more. The second you stop being useful, you'll be gone." Tia swallowed hard. Catalina stood. "Oh, and don't get too attached to that collar. It belonged to me first." Then she walked out, leaving silence and a firestorm behind. Zane returned an hour later. He entered the room casually, like he hadn't just sent in a viper to poison the air. But the second he saw her face, he stopped. "What did she say to you?" Tia stared at him, jaw tight. "You sent her here to break me? She came uninvited. Bullshit." "She wanted to remind you where you stand." Tia's eyes burned. "And where is that? At your feet? On your leash?" Zane took a step forward. "No, right where you are." Her heart thundered. He continued. "You want the truth? Catalina was a distraction. Nothing more. She was never a threat, but she hates what you represent." "And what's that?" Tia snapped. Zane paused. Then he looked her straight in the eye. "Change." The word hit her harder than expected. "I don't need change," she said, softer now. "Then why haven't you tried to escape again?" he asked. Her silence said everything. "I'll tell you why," he said, stepping closer, voice dropping low. "Because this room is the only place you've ever been where you're not pretending, where no one's trying to turn you into a deal, a bride, a transaction." His hand reached up, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Tia froze. "You hate this," he said. "You hate me. But you've never been seen like this before. You've never been wanted like this before." He let the words hang, and for the first time, he didn't follow it with a threat. He just left. Tia stared at the collar that night for a long time. Her fingers hovered over it, but she didn't put it on. Not yet. Instead, she slipped it under the pillow. A promise. A challenge. A line she wasn't ready to cross, but was inching toward every second. Chapter 7. The First Crack. Tia didn't dream. She remembered the sound of her father's voice, cold and commanding, the hollow praise, the way he'd smile in front of strangers but turn to stone behind closed doors. Every inch of her upbringing was calculated, like she'd been groomed for a future she never chose. Now she was in a different cage, different man, same control. Or so she kept telling herself. But Zane didn't look at her like her father did. He didn't dismiss her thoughts. He didn't treat her like she was made of glass. He saw her, and that was more dangerous than any threat he'd made. She sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the collar still tucked beneath the pillow. The box had long been discarded. It felt too ceremonial, too final. But the collar remained, waiting. She didn't want to wear it, but she wanted to know what it meant if she chose to. Zane didn't sleep either. He sat in the dark, barefoot, shirtless, gun resting beside him on the glass coffee table. The city glowed below, indifferent to the war brewing in his chest. He was supposed to be in control. That had been the plan. Kidnap the girl, shatter her father's illusion of safety, destroy the Romanoff dynasty piece by piece, make her a message, a living reminder of what vengeance looked like. But she wasn't breaking. And worse, he didn't want to break her anymore. He wanted her to stay exactly as she was. Fierce, sharp-tongued, maddening. The fire in her wasn't weakness. It was what made him want to touch her, taste her, claim her. Luca entered quietly, holding a phone. Zane glanced up. "What?" "There's chatter." Zane leaned forward. "Romanoff?" "No, one of Dimitri's soldiers. Apparently he's gone off script. Took a crew. They're planning a move on the Brooklyn docks. Tonight." Zane's eyes narrowed. "He's trying to hurt something that matters to me." Luca nodded. "He doesn't know about Tia, but he knows we've been shifting cargo through there. If he hits the shipment—" "Take the crew. Stop it. No survivors." Luca hesitated. "You want me to tell her?" Zane stood. "No, not yet. But she should know the man she almost married just declared war." Zane's voice was low, hard. "She'll see the truth soon enough." That afternoon, Zane returned to her room. The air was still. Tia sat at the window, legs tucked beneath her, one hand resting on the collar hidden under the cushion beside her. He didn't mention it. She didn't either. Instead, he approached with something unexpected, a book. She glanced at it, leather-bound, a classic. "Anna Karenina," she read aloud, raising a brow. "What's this supposed to be? Some kind of sick metaphor?" Zane sat across from her, unbothered. "No, it's your favorite." She blinked. "How do you—" "I told you I've studied you." "That's creepy. It's preparation." She folded her arms. "You're a mob boss. Why do you care about Russian literature?" Zane smiled faintly. "My mother was a professor. Classics. I memorized Tolstoy before I ever touched a gun." The information hit her like a slap. It was the first real thing he'd ever shared with her, something vulnerable, human. "You never talk about your past," she said. "I talk when it matters." "And does this matter?" Zane's eyes met hers. "You matter." Her breath caught. He stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. I want you to understand something, he said. I didn't bring you here just to hurt your father. I brought you here to destroy him. Same thing. No, not anymore. He turned back toward her, voice lower now. Because the more time I spend with you, the more I see what he tried to bury. You're not his weapon. You're his greatest fear. And what am I to you? She whispered. Zane stared at her for a long moment. Not a hostage, he said. Not anymore. She didn't reply, but she didn't look away. Later that night, Tia lay in bed, wide awake. She kept playing his words over in her head. You matter. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't tender, but it felt like a crack in his armor. She rolled over and slid her hand beneath the pillow. Her fingers closed around the collar. She held it for a moment, pressed it to her chest, then stood. When Zane returned an hour later expecting silence, he found her sitting upright on the bed, wearing it. The collar hugged her throat like a crown. He stopped in the doorway. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then she spoke, calm, quiet, but unshakable. I'm not doing this for you. Zane stepped into the room. Then why? Because I want control. You think the collar gives you that? No, she said, but choosing it does. He walked to her slowly, stopping just short of the bed. His fingers reached out, touched the leather lightly like it might burn. It suits you, he said. She met his eyes. I don't belong to you. You will. No, she said, lifting her chin. If you want to keep me, Zane, you'll have to earn it. He smiled then, not cruel, not cold, something quieter, darker, respect. I'm not used to being challenged, Tia smirked. Get used to it. And for the first time since she'd arrived, they both knew something had shifted. This wasn't a game anymore. This was war. But not against each other, against everything that had made them who they were. Chapter 8, Blood at the Docks. Tia didn't know what woke her. A sound? A feeling? Maybe it was the way the air changed, thickened, like it carried a warning. She sat upright in bed, breath shallow. The clock on the wall blinked 3:17 a.m. The hallway outside was silent, too silent. Then she heard it. A low murmur. Voices. Movement. She slipped from the bed and padded across the room in bare feet, pressing her ear to the door. It wasn't Zane. She knew his voice by now, low, controlled, calm. This was tension, urgency. She heard Luca. Took out 6 men already. Dimitri's crew came heavy. Hit the Brooklyn site hard. Shit, a second voice growled. Is the boss there? No, he left 30 minutes before the attack. They timed it almost perfect. Where's the girl? Still in the room, doesn't know yet. That made her freeze. Zane hadn't told her about any operation. She hadn't even known he'd left the penthouse. They were hiding something big. Zane stood outside, breathing in the cold sting of night air, the metallic scent of blood still clinging to his skin. His shirt was soaked, half sweat, half red. One of his men had died on the dock trying to shield a shipment that had already gone up in flames. The ambush had been too precise, too clean. It wasn't just retaliation. It was a declaration. Dimitri was making a play. He wasn't content to let Zane chip away at Victor's empire. He wanted to cut off the head of the Valenti family and take the crown for himself. But Dimitri had made one mistake. He'd left Tia out of the equation. Zane wasn't just fighting for revenge anymore. He was fighting for her. Tia stormed into the hallway the second Luca unlocked the door. He tried to block her path. Miss Romanoff? Move. He didn't. So she slapped him. Hard. The sharp crack echoed down the corridor. You can shoot people, she snapped, but not stop a woman from walking into a damn hallway? Luca sighed and stepped aside. She didn't wait. She followed the sound of chaos. Footsteps, voices, the smell of antiseptic and gunpowder, to a large open lounge where Zane stood shirtless, stitched up, and angry. Her breath hitched. He turned before she could speak, and froze. Her eyes went to the gash on his ribs, the smears of blood, the gun in his waistband. You're bleeding. It's not mine, he lied. She didn't believe him. What happened? She asked. He didn't answer. I heard them, she continued. Your men. They said the docks were hit, that you were ambushed. Zane walked past her and poured a drink. His silence was louder than any admission. You could have died, he turned sharply. I didn't. That's not the point, she shouted. Zane crossed the room in 2 strides. Then what is the point, Tia, that you finally care? She slapped him. But this time, he caught her wrist mid-swing. Not hard, not painful, just firm. I told you, he said softly, this is war. Her voice cracked. You're turning me into something else. No, he said. I'm showing you who you already are. Their breathing synced. His chest rose and fell just inches from hers. She could see every line of the scars across his ribs, some old, some fresh. "Your fiancé did this," he added darkly. "Your father signed off on it. This is what they do to people who get in their way." "I didn't ask to be part of this." "No," he agreed, "but you are." He let go of her wrist, turned his back. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "I didn't want to give you another reason to run." "I'm not running." That stopped him. Slowly he turned, and when his eyes met hers again, something cracked open. Not dominance, not anger, just need. He reached out, just once, fingertips brushing the base of her neck, just above the collar. "You wore it," he said, voice low. "I didn't do it for you." Zane didn't smile. Not this time. He leaned in, lips at her ear. "Do it for yourself, but either way, you're mine." And this time, she didn't push him away. Chapter 9. The Safe House. The SUV roared through the backroads of upstate New York, headlights slicing through the darkness. Tia sat in the back seat beside Zane, her arms crossed, jaw clenched. She hadn't said a word since they left the city. No explanation, no warning. 1 minute she was in the penthouse, the next she was being escorted into a black vehicle by 2 of Zane's men and told to keep her head down. "I'm not a piece of luggage," she muttered. Zane didn't look at her. "You want to stay alive? Where are we going? A place no one can find you." She turned sharply toward him. "Are they coming for me?" He didn't answer. That was enough. "Dimitri's not just after you anymore," she said, realizing the truth out loud. "He's coming for me, too." "He wants leverage," Zane replied flatly. "You are leverage." She hated that word. He continued, "Romanoff still has resources. The docks were a warning shot, the next one will aim higher." "And what, this is your plan? Hide me in a cabin while you go to war?" Zane finally turned his head. "You're not just bait anymore. That makes you a liability and a target. And what does that make me to you?" There was a beat of silence. Then quietly he said, "Mine." Tia looked away, pulse unsteady. The safe house sat on a cliff, surrounded by pine trees and snow-dusted rock. The air smelled like frost and silence. No neighbors, no cell towers, just a stone lodge with a wraparound porch and too many shadows. The driver unloaded their bags and left without a word. Inside, the lodge was surprisingly warm. A fire already crackled in the hearth, the scent of cedarwood lingering in the walls. Everything was dark wood, leather, and steel, exactly like Zane. Every window had reinforced shutters. The air screamed isolation. 2 bedrooms, he said, tossing his duffel onto the couch. "Pick one." She didn't move. "You brought me all the way out here," she said. "Are you planning to keep me in a cage again?" Zane stepped closer. "You're not locked in." She raised an eyebrow. "No cameras? No guards?" "No collar either," he said. That silenced her. For the first time she realized this wasn't punishment. This was trust. Or maybe a test. That night, Tia wandered the lodge in silence. Zane had disappeared into the second room, his room, leaving her to explore. The place felt like him, controlled, cold, sharp around the edges, but beneath the surface, something softer. She found the books first, a massive wall of them, leather-bound, well-worn, Russian, Italian, English, all organized by hand. She ran her finger across the spines. History, war, poetry. Then she found the photo, tucked beside a glass of untouched whiskey on a side table. A girl with dark eyes and a soft smile, no older than 20. Her sister? She turned it over. Alessia. Always watching, the name hit her like a punch. The sister he'd lost, the one her father had killed. Tia sat down slowly, staring at the photo, and for the first time since this all began, her anger gave way to something else. Guilt. Zane found her an hour later, curled on the sofa with the photo in her hands. She didn't hide it. "She's beautiful," Tia said softly. He stayed in the doorway, silent. "You loved her." "She was the only thing I loved." "I didn't know." Zane's voice was quiet. "You weren't supposed to." She turned toward him. "Why did he do it?" Zane's jaw tightened. "Because Alessia refused to stay quiet. She tried to expose one of Victor's trafficking routes, got caught in the crossfire. And you've been waiting to make him bleed ever since." He nodded once. Tia stood slowly, walked to him. "Then why not kill me?" Zane's eyes burned into hers. "Because when I look at you, I don't see him." She didn't respond. Couldn't, because she wanted to touch him. Not out of pity, out of need. So she did. Her fingers traced the scar near his shoulder, then slid down his arm. He didn't stop her, he just watched. and when she leaned up and kissed him, he let her. But only for a moment. Zane pulled back, breathing hard. "Careful," he said. "You're starting to mean something." "I already do," she whispered. He stared at her like she was the most dangerous thing in the world. Then he turned and walked away. Tia stood in the silence of the firelight, heart racing. It wasn't just war anymore. It was personal, on both sides, and she wasn't sure who would survive it. Chapter 10. Heat in the cold snow fell heavy through the pines outside. The safe house windows frosted over with breath and winter, and the fire in the hearth had started to dim, casting the room in amber shadows. Tia stood barefoot in the kitchen, clutching a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She hadn't seen Zane all day. After their almost kiss, he'd vanished behind the door of his room like a man locking away a secret. But she could feel him. His presence haunted the space, his scent in the air, the echo of his voice in her ears, the lingering burn of his fingertips near her skin. The storm outside was just weather. The real storm was in her chest. She couldn't sleep, couldn't think, not without wanting him, and that scared her more than anything. Zane hadn't left his room for hours. He paced like a caged predator, his fists clenched, his head a war zone. He hadn't meant to let her in. Not like that. Not with the photo, the firelight, the softness that slipped through his defenses like a blade. He didn't fall. He took. He owned. But Tia wasn't a conquest. She wasn't something he could dominate and forget. She got under his skin, in his head, into places that no one, not even Alessia, had ever breached. And the worst part? She didn't even know what she was doing to him. Midnight. Tia heard the creak of a floorboard behind her. She didn't turn. "I thought you were avoiding me," she said softly. "I was." Zane's voice was raw, like he'd been wrestling something dark and losing. She finally turned to face him. He wore only black sweatpants and a dark thermal shirt that clung to every hard line of his body. His hair was messy, eyes tired but sharp, stormy gray, focused entirely on her. "You should go back to bed," he said. "I'm not tired." He took a step closer. "You should be scared." "I am." Tia didn't move. Zane's jaw clenched. His control wavered. "Why did you kiss me?" he asked. "Why did you let me?" He didn't answer, because they both already knew. "I'm not some fragile girl," she whispered, "and you're not as cold as you pretend to be." Zane stepped closer, slow, lethal. "You don't want to see what I become when I stop pretending." Tia raised her chin. "Maybe I do." They were only inches apart now, breathing the same air, falling into the same gravity. Zane's hand reached up, slow, hesitant, and touched her jaw. His thumb brushed across her bottom lip. "You're going to regret this," he whispered. She leaned into his palm. "Then ruin me." That was all it took. His mouth crashed into hers, hot, fierce, claiming. He lifted her with one hand on her thigh and carried her to the kitchen counter like she weighed nothing. Her legs wrapped around his waist, and he pinned her there, body to body, heat for heat. She moaned into his mouth. He growled into hers. The kiss deepened, teeth, tongue, breathless need. One hand in her hair, the other gripping her waist like he was afraid she'd vanish. She wasn't going anywhere. Her fingers tugged at his shirt, and he let her pull it over his head. Scars, muscle, raw, brutal beauty. But just as his hand slipped under her shirt, the sound of a phone buzzing from the other room shattered everything. They froze, breathing hard. Heartbeats thundered between them. Zane stepped back first, fury in his eyes. Not at her. At the world for interrupting something real. He grabbed his shirt, pulled it on, and crossed the room without another word. Tia sat on the counter, lips swollen, skin flushed, still aching for his touch. But the moment was gone. And when she heard him curse behind the wall a second later, she knew something had changed, not just between them, in the world beyond. Zane answered the encrypted phone and didn't wait for a greeting. "What?" Luca's voice came through low and tight. "We've got movement." Zane didn't like the sound of that. "Who?" "We don't know yet, but someone pinged the old safe house line, burner location. They're within 20 miles. Zane's blood ran cold. "How the hell did they get that close?" "We think it's a mole." "From our side?" "Maybe, or maybe Victor finally bought someone deep." Zane's hand curled around the phone like he could crush it. "I'll handle it." "You want backup?" "No," Zane growled. "I don't want anyone near her." He hung up and turned toward the hallway. His heart was still thundering from the kiss, But now, for a different reason, they weren't safe anymore, and this time Tia might not walk away untouched. Chapter 11. Fire in the Pines. Tia stood barefoot on the cold floor, still perched where Zane had left her, on the kitchen counter, lips tingling, heart racing. She had just kissed the devil, and the devil had kissed her back like he wanted to consume her. But something had shifted the moment his phone rang. His expression had darkened, his focus snapped to something unseen, like a predator catching scent of blood. She slid off the counter, padded into the hallway. Zane? He was in the living room now, all shadows and silence, loading a weapon with sharp mechanical precision. Her heart dropped. What happened? Zane didn't look up. Get your shoes. Her blood turned to ice. Why? We're leaving. Tia stepped closer, voice tight. Tell me what's going on. He met her eyes then, and there was no pretense in his face, just truth, raw, grim. They found us. The first shot rang out seconds later. Tia screamed as the window behind her shattered in a burst of glass and snow. Zane grabbed her and dragged her to the ground just as two more shots splintered the frame of the front door. He rolled over her, covering her with his body, his gun drawn, eyes sharp. Stay down. She nodded, breathless. Outside, voices barked in Russian, boots pounded over gravel. Zane's mind worked fast. Dmitri hadn't come himself, he was too much of a coward. But he'd sent men, probably 5. Maybe more, professional, trained, armed. They were here to take Tia and kill him. Not tonight. Zane pressed a gun into her hand. Ever shot one? She looked at it like it might bite her. No. You point. You squeeze. You don't hesitate. Tia's hands shook. Zane, don't die, he said coldly. I'll handle the rest. Zane moved like a ghost, low, lethal, silent. He crouched near the front door, waited for a shadow to pass by the shattered window, then fired. One shot, clean. The body fell hard in the snow. Tia huddled behind the overturned couch, the pistol heavy in her lap. Her chest was tight, vision narrowing. This wasn't like watching a movie or reading her father's threat reports. This was real. Too real. Zane's voice cut through the tension. Back room. Go, now. She ran, barefoot and freezing, toward the rear hallway as bullets ripped through the front wall. A vase exploded beside her, spraying ceramic into her shoulder. She didn't scream. She hit the back door with her shoulder, shoved it open, and stumbled into the dark. Snow, forest, silence. For a second. Then, the crunch of boots behind her. Tia turned and saw a figure in black, rifle raised. She didn't think. She pulled the trigger. Once, twice. The recoil shocked her, sent her stumbling backward, but the man fell, right in front of her. She stood there, breath heaving, staring at what she'd done. Blood soaked the snow. Her hands shook. Her knees wobbled. She had killed a man. She didn't cry. Zane appeared seconds later, grabbed her arm. Move. I shot him. You did good, he snapped, dragging her into the trees. You're still breathing, that's all that matters. They moved fast through the woods, the freezing night air cutting through their clothes like knives. Tia's lungs burned. Her bare feet were turning numb. The adrenaline was wearing off and reality was settling in. But she kept going, because Zane didn't stop. And neither could she. They reached the SUV stashed in a hollowed-out path at the bottom of the hill. Zane shoved her inside, then climbed in the driver's seat and peeled off into the night. For miles, they said nothing. Just snow, silence, survival. Then, softly, she spoke. I shot him. Zane's grip on the wheel tightened. You saved your life. She looked down at her hands. I didn't think I could. I knew you could. She turned to him. Why didn't you tell me sooner that they were coming? Because I didn't want to scare you. Tia laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Too late. Zane glanced at her. You were brave. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. She went quiet. Then, why do I believe you? Zane exhaled slowly. Because I don't lie to you. They drove for over an hour before he pulled into a dark garage behind a steel gate. New location, new safe house. This one felt even more isolated. No firelight, no comfort, just walls, weapons, and hard choices. Zane opened the passenger door. She stepped out, legs trembling, and he caught her. His hands on her waist steadied her. Warm, strong, their eyes locked, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not lust, not survival, loyalty, the kind forged under fire, the kind you don't walk away from. Inside, Zane patched up the small cut on her arm. She winced, but didn't flinch. You need sleep, he murmured. So do you. He paused, then said, Stay in my room. Tia blinked. He didn't clarify, didn't seduce, just offered. And that, more than anything, made her say yes. That night, she curled into his bed, fully clothed, her body still humming from shock and cold. Zane lay beside her, silent, the heat of his body anchoring her. No words, no touches, just presence. And for the first time in her life, Tia Romanoff felt safe, in the arms of the man who had stolen her. Chapter 12. Aftershock. The silence of the new safe house was different, colder. Tia sat at the edge of the bed, wrapped in one of Zane's thick black hoodies, staring down at her hands. They were clean now. He'd washed them for her, gentle and silent after she nearly threw up in the bathroom. But the memory of blood on her skin, warm and real, clung to her like smoke. She had killed someone. He would have killed her. But still, she hadn't cried. Not yet. Zane stood across the room, back turned, speaking quietly into a burner phone. No, he's dead. So is the one outside the south window. Yeah, she got the third. Tia's head snapped up. She what? The voice on the other end shouted. Zane didn't flinch. She pulled the trigger. 2 shots. Clean. She's not trained. She's not stupid, Zane interrupted. She reacted. She survived. That's what matters. He hung up without waiting for a reply. The room fell quiet again. Tia finally spoke. I keep hearing the sound. Zane turned to her. Of the gun, she nodded. Not the bang, the body hitting the snow. Zane walked toward her, crouched down in front of her, his gray eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. It won't haunt you forever. How do you know? Because the first time always does. But the second time is easier. And the third, you stop hearing the sound at all. She stared at him. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. They sat there in silence, the weight between them thick. The only warmth came from the small fire Zane had lit in the corner hearth. She hadn't noticed before how his face changed in low light, shadows softening the sharp edges, grief lingering beneath the steel. She whispered, You ever wish you could undo it all? He paused. I wish I could forget her face, he said. Your sister? He nodded once. She looked up to me, thought I was invincible. But I wasn't fast enough that day, wasn't smart enough. I got careless. You were 22, Tia said softly. You were barely older than I am now. Zane tilted his head. Don't let this world fool you. It doesn't care how old you are. It just teaches you the cost of not being ready. He stood again and paced toward the window. Snow fell steadily outside, a hush settling over the pine forest. Tia stayed seated. They're going to keep coming, aren't they? Yes, because of me. Zane turned, his expression unreadable. Because of us. Tia blinked. What does that mean? It means this isn't just revenge anymore. Dimitri saw you as a means to power. Victor saw you as a pawn. And you? She asked. Zane's voice dropped low. I saw you before I ever touched you. That did something to her chest, something hot, tight. She stood slowly, walked toward him, stopping just a breath away. Her hands trembled, but not from fear this time. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. Not Romanoff's daughter, not your prisoner. You're becoming, he said. She nodded, and it terrifies me. It should. She looked up at him, green eyes sharp. But it doesn't stop me. His mouth brushed hers before either of them realized it. Soft, almost hesitant. Then she kissed him back, and the hesitation vanished. It wasn't wild like before. It wasn't desperate. This was slower, deeper, like they were both trying to memorize the shape of something dangerous and sacred. Zane cupped the back of her neck, holding her still as his lips moved against hers. She leaned into him, her fingers gripping the hem of his shirt, pulling him closer. She needed to feel something real. He needed to feel her. But before they could lose themselves entirely, a knock slammed against the front door. Zane broke the kiss instantly, gun drawn. Eyes cold. Tia stepped back, her heart racing. He moved to the front of the house like a ghost, back pressed to the wall. Knock. Again. 3 times. Then a voice. It's Luca. Zane didn't lower the gun. Alone? Yes. Zane waited another beat, then opened the door. Luca stepped inside, snow on his shoulders, hands raised. I didn't bring backup. Zane closed the door and locked it. Talk. They're calling it a leak. Someone gave up the safe house? Luca nodded. Not one of ours, but someone's been talking. Maybe bribed, maybe blackmailed. Someone who knew we moved her. Zane's jaw clenched. I'll find them, Luca said. You'd better. Then Luca's eyes flicked to Tia, standing barefoot in Zane's hoodie, hair tousled, lips swollen. He arched a brow. Zane growled. Say nothing. I didn't say anything. Zane turned to Tia. Go get some rest. She hesitated. I want to hear. Now. She didn't argue, but as she walked away, her eyes stayed locked on Zane's. He wasn't just her captor anymore. He was her protector, and maybe dangerously something more. Chapter 13. The Door That Shouldn't Open. The next morning, the safe house was quieter than usual. No footsteps, no voices, no Zane. Tia wandered the hall barefoot, wearing leggings and a soft black tee that she'd borrowed from his drawer the night before. She should have felt strange about it. She didn't. In a world that kept shifting under her feet, it was the only comfort she had. She paused in front of the living room window. Snow blanketed the world in white, erasing the footprints from their escape. It was beautiful, serene, but it made her skin crawl. Too still, too quiet. Her instincts, which had sharpened in ways she didn't like to admit, told her something was wrong. Zane had left without waking her. That wasn't like him. She moved through the house, past the fireless hearth, past the empty kitchen, and then she saw it. A door, half open. She'd never noticed it before. It blended perfectly into the hallway paneling, no handle, no trim, invisible unless you were looking for it. But it was ajar now. Tia looked over her shoulder, nothing but silence. She stepped forward. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Inside, a narrow stairwell, stone walls, cold air rushed up from below. A basement? She hesitated. Zane hadn't told her not to go down there, but he hadn't told her it existed, either. That in itself felt like a warning. But curiosity had always been her worst vice. She descended, one step, then another. The air grew colder. The walls narrowed. It felt more like a bunker than a basement. At the bottom, another door. Steel, locked with a fingerprint pad. She almost turned back. Almost. Then she noticed something, a smear of blood near the keypad. Fresh. She reached out. The pad blinked red. Unauthorized. Of course, but the blood meant someone had touched it recently. Someone who bled trying to get in or out. Tia backed away, her pulse rising. What the hell was Zane hiding down here? Zane returned an hour later. Snow dusted his shoulders as he entered the house and pulled off his gloves. His shirt was damp from sweat, his jaw tight. He found Tia in the living room, reading, or pretending to. He knew something was off the moment he saw her eyes. Tired? He asked. No. Hungry? No. He poured himself a drink. You're quiet. You're hiding something. Zane froze for a beat. Then he turned to face her. That's a broad accusation. There's a room, she said, downstairs, hidden with a keypad. Zane said nothing. You didn't tell me about it, because it wasn't relevant. There's blood on the lock, Zane. His eyes hardened. Tia stood slowly. I want to know what's behind that door. No. Her heart twisted. Why? Because what's down there changes things. Changes what? Everything. She stepped closer. You're not the only one with secrets. Zane set the glass down and walked to her, slow and deliberate. He cupped her face, gently this time. You think I'm not scared of that? Her breath caught. He whispered, I brought you into this because I needed a weapon. But now, I can't use you that way, not anymore. Then let me in. He kissed her forehead once, but didn't say yes, didn't say no. That night, she couldn't sleep. Zane had disappeared again, slipping out just after midnight without a word. Tia sat up in bed, the silence thick around her. She didn't want to be the girl who obeyed quietly anymore. She didn't want to be the prisoner who waited for answers. So she crept back down the hallway, down the stone stairwell to the steel door once more. She stood in front of it, heart pounding. She whispered, What are you hiding, Zane? The keypad blinked red again. Then, a faint knock. From the other side. Tia stumbled back, hand over her mouth. The knock came again, once, soft, deliberate. Someone was in there, alive, and trying to get out. Chapter 14. The Man Behind the Door. The knock echoed in Tia's ears long after she fled the basement. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. She lay curled on the far edge of the bed, staring into darkness, body tense, mind spiraling. There was someone down there. Someone Zane had locked away. Someone who bled. Someone who knocked. That wasn't business. That was personal. And it changed everything. She'd almost convinced herself she was falling for a man with a moral compass, one warped by vengeance but guided by pain. But now, she didn't know what to believe. Because whatever Zane Valenti was hiding behind that door, it wasn't part of any Mafia war. It was something darker. He came back just before dawn. Boots scuffed, shirt damp from snow and sweat, gun holstered but tension radiating off his body in waves. Tia didn't wait for him to speak. She stood in the center of the room, barefoot, arms crossed, wearing nothing but one of his shirts. "You lied to me." Zane stilled, halfway to the bathroom. "No. You kept it from me." He didn't respond. "You locked someone down there." "Not someone," he said finally. "Something." "Don't play games, Zane. I heard them. I heard them knock." His jaw clenched. And then he did what she hadn't expected. He walked past her and poured a drink. It was 5 a.m. That told her everything. She moved closer. "Who is it?" He stared into the glass like the whiskey might answer for him. Tia tried again, softer this time. "Tell me." Zane's voice was quiet. "My cousin, Matteo," she blinked. "You're holding your own family prisoner?" Zane exhaled like the truth was a curse. "He betrayed us, leaked Alessia's location the night she was killed, sold her out for money and a deal with Romanoff." Tia's stomach dropped. "You're sure?" Zane nodded once. "Like he confessed before I locked him down there, said it wasn't supposed to go that far, that she was just leverage." Tia stepped back, spine hitting the wall. "How long has he been down there?" Zane didn't answer. "Zane, 4 years." Her eyes widened. "You've been keeping him alive for 4 years?" "I feed him. Water, light, a bed. It's more than he gave her." Tia's voice trembled. "That's torture. That's justice." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Justice is letting go. This is obsession." Zane's gaze snapped to hers. "And what would you know about justice, princess? You grew up in a palace of lies, surrounded by killers, and you never asked where the blood went." She recoiled like he'd slapped her, but he didn't stop. "You think this is about being right, about healing?" His voice dropped. "No, this world doesn't heal. It survives, and so do I." Tia's eyes burned. "And what am I? Just another piece in your survival plan?" His answer came too fast. "No." The word hung in the air like a live wire. "No," he repeated, softer this time. "You were never supposed to mean anything." But now, he looked at her like she was both salvation and ruin. "I don't know how to let you go." Tia stood still, heart pounding. "You need to let him out," she whispered. "Face him. End it, one way or the other, because keeping him in a cage means you're still caged too." Zane said nothing, but his silence wasn't dismissal. It was hesitation. And that, more than anything, gave her hope. Later that morning, Tia stood at the kitchen sink, staring out at the snow-covered pines. A mug of untouched coffee sat in her hand. She was numb, but not lost. Not yet. Zane entered quietly. She didn't turn around. He placed a folded piece of paper beside her on the counter. She glanced at it. Access code 61842. Her breath hitched. She looked up at him. "What is this?" "Keypad code," he said. "To him?" Zane nodded once. "Why are you giving me this?" His jaw flexed. "Because you're the only one who could open the door and not get shot." Tia's hands trembled. "I'm not doing it for you," she said. Zane replied, "No, you're doing it for me." She turned back to the window, but her voice was steady now. "And maybe," she whispered, "you're finally doing something for yourself, too." Chapter 15. The Confession. Tia stared at the slip of paper in her hand like it was a live grenade. 618042. The code that unlocked the door Zane never wanted opened. She stood at the top of the stairwell for a full minute before moving. Her bare feet were silent on the stone, her pulse anything but. The air grew colder with each step, heavy, still. She reached the steel door. One breath in, she punched the code into the keypad. 6.182. The panel blinked green. A hiss, a click, the lock disengaged. Tia's hand hovered on the handle. She expected a monster, a ghost. But when she pushed the door open, what she saw was a man, sitting in a chair, wrists bound, face bruised, beard grown wild, and eyes that looked far too much like Zane's. His head snapped up at the sound. He squinted. "You're not him." "No," she said. "I'm not." Silence stretched between them. Then he smiled. Not cruel, just tired. "You're the girl," he said. "The one who made Zane forget he was a weapon." Tia stepped inside, heart hammering. "You're Matteo," he nodded. She studied him. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone who'd been forgotten by the world. "How long have you been down here?" He tilted his head. "I stopped counting after year 2. Tia swallowed. "He said you betrayed him?" Matteo exhaled. "That's a complicated story." "I have time." He gave her a long, unreadable look. Then said, "I was working both sides. That part's true. I fed intel to Victor, skimmed cash from shipments. Stupid, greedy. But Alessia, I never meant for her to die." Tia's voice sharpened. "You gave up her location." I was told it was just leverage. Pressure for Zane to back off on a truce, but Victor lied. You know that better than anyone. Tia nodded once. I warned her, Matteo said. I called, told her to run. She didn't. Why not? Because she loved your brother. She thought he'd protect her. His voice cracked. I should have told Zane that, but I knew he wouldn't care. Grief doesn't listen. Tia crossed her arms. So you let him lock you down here for 4 years. Matteo laughed bitterly. Let him, princess? I begged for a bullet. He said this was better. Tia hesitated. Why now? He asked. Why are you here? Because I heard you knock. Matteo blinked. You're not what I expected, he said. Tia stepped closer. You said something I can't forget, that I made him forget he was a weapon. You did, Matteo said. But don't think that makes him safe. Tia's spine straightened. You're saying I shouldn't trust him. I'm saying, Matteo whispered, that Zane thinks he's falling for you, but if you ever hurt him, if you ever make him feel like he failed you the way he failed Alessia, he'll burn the world down. He looked up, eyes sharp now. And you'll burn with it. Tia emerged from the basement, pale and silent. Zane was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You opened it, he said. She nodded. You talked to him. Another nod. He stepped closer. And? He doesn't hate you. Zane's jaw flexed. He should. He's not what I thought. Zane said nothing. Tia's voice dropped. And neither are you. That caught him. He stared at her, gray eyes narrowing. What did he tell you? That he warned her, that you never listened. Zane's fists clenched. He told her to run. And she stayed? Tia nodded once, because she loved you. Zane turned away. I would have protected her, he whispered. She thought you would. Tia walked to him, slow, careful. Her voice was softer now. You're not a monster, Zane, but you are at war with everyone, with yourself. That room, it's not justice. It's your prison, too. He turned toward her, voice raw. You want me to let him go? No, she said. I want you to let him go. Zane stared at her like she was the only thing tethering him to what was left of his soul. And for a moment, just one, she thought he might. That night, Tia couldn't sleep. Zane stood outside, alone in the snow, staring up at the moon. She watched him through the window. Then finally, barefoot and reckless, she stepped outside and joined him. The snow crunched beneath her, the cold kissed her skin, but it was nothing compared to the fire between them. He turned, eyes drinking her in. She stepped close, her voice low. If you fall, I fall with you. Zane touched her cheek, hand shaking. Don't say that. Why? Because I'll believe it. And then he kissed her. Not like the last time, not like war, but like surrender. Chapter 16, Bound by Blood. Zane didn't speak for hours. After the kiss in the snow, after the silence, after the weight of Tia's words, if you fall, I fall with you, he returned inside and sat alone at the edge of the firelight, like a man lost between two lives. He didn't touch her again that night. He didn't need to. The intimacy was in the silence, in what they didn't say. Tia sat on the couch, curled into a blanket, watching the flames lick the air. She had seen the war behind Zane's eyes, and she knew something had shifted inside him. But whether it was freedom or fracture, that remained to be seen. By morning, she found him downstairs. Not in the basement, but in the kitchen. Cooking. Eggs, toast, black coffee. No armor, no weapons. Just a man with blood on his soul and too many ghosts at his back. You sleep? He asked. A little? He handed her a plate. She took it. Sat down at the island. I've been thinking, he said after a while. She waited. I've kept him alive because I needed to believe I was different than the men I kill. You are, she said quietly. Zane shook his head. No. Not when I've been punishing him like this. Not when I haven't given him a way out. Tia hesitated. So what are you going to do? His jaw tightened. I'm giving you the choice. She blinked. Me? You opened the door. You spoke to him. You saw him as a person, not a betrayal. He turned to her. I trust you. The words hit her like a tidal wave. Trust. From a man who built empires on fear. I don't want that responsibility, she whispered. Too bad, he said, because I already gave it to you. Later that afternoon, Luca arrived at the safe house. He brought files, burner phones, and tension. Zane and Tia stood in the study as Luca spread the folders across the table. This is bad, Luca said. Dimitri's moved his operation underground. No pattern, no chatter. We think he's prepping something big. Zane opened a folder. Inside, surveillance photos, street cam stills, timestamps, and one face that stopped him cold. Victor Romanoff. "Your father's back in the city," Zane said, looking at Tia. She nodded slowly. "I figured he would be." "He's not just reacting, he's building." "Let me guess," she said. "He's not happy I haven't come home." Zane's mouth curled bitterly. "He's treating it like you were stolen." "I was." Zane glanced at her. "But I didn't stay because I had to." That quieted the room. Luca cleared his throat. "You should both see this." He pulled out a new photo, blurry but clear enough. Tia's breath caught. "That's Enzo," she said. "He was one of my father's top guards." Luca nodded. "He's been meeting with someone on our side." Zane's jaw clenched. "A mole. Looks like it." Tia's heart sank. "It could explain how they found the first safe house," Luca added. Zane turned to her, his eyes dark. "We need to smoke him out. Quietly. No bullets. Not yet." "You want me to talk to him," Tia said. "You're the only one he'd never expect." That night, Zane walked her back to her room. Neither spoke. At the door, she paused. "I don't know if I can lie to someone who used to protect me." "You can," Zane said, "because you've learned how." Tia swallowed. "And if he sees through it?" Zane's voice dropped. "Then I kill him first." She reached for the doorknob, but he caught her wrist. "Tia." She turned. Zane stepped closer, his voice low, almost afraid. "If I lose you..." "You won't. You could." She touched his chest, right above his heart. "I've seen what's behind the door," she said, "and I'm still here." Zane stared at her, and in that second, something broke. Something healed. He leaned in, kissed her forehead, then left her alone. Tia closed the door behind her and locked it. She sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. The chessboard was growing more crowded, enemies on both sides. But she wasn't a pawn anymore, not to Zane, and definitely not to her father. She was something else now, and tomorrow she'd prove it. Chapter 17. The Guard Who Watched Her Grow. The rooftop cafe hadn't changed. Same rusted chairs, same chipped tiles, same view of the city skyline glowing gold under dusk. Tia hadn't been here in 3 years. Back then, Enzo would sit across from her and sip bitter espresso while her father did deals in the shadows. Enzo had been her silent shadow, her protector. Now he was her target. She wore all black. Jeans, fitted jacket, gloves, and Zane's knife hidden in her boot. Her hair was down, no makeup, nothing flashy. She wasn't here to look like the princess of the Romanoff dynasty. She was here to find a traitor, and maybe, if it came to it, end him. Enzo sat at the same table as always, a white mug in front of him, a half-finished cigarette in his fingers. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes were just as sharp. "Tia," he said as she approached, voice gruff with memory. "I thought you were dead." She sat across from him. "You were supposed to keep me alive." He smirked. "Didn't know you were still assigning me that job." Tia didn't return the smile. "I know you've been talking to someone in Zane's crew." Enzo didn't blink. "You come back from the dead just to interrogate me?" "No," she said. "I came back to find out if you're the one helping them kill him." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "You think I'd sell Zane out? For what? Victor's scraps?" "Then prove it," she said. "Tell me who it is. Give me a name." "I don't have one." She stared at him. His face gave nothing away. She sighed. "You were like family, Enzo." "I still am." "No, you're not," she said coldly. "Because if you were, you wouldn't be feeding intel to the man who tried to marry me off like cattle. The man who ordered the hit on Alessia." Enzo's gaze dropped. "I didn't know about Alessia." "Didn't you?" she said. He looked up. "You think you know what this world is now just because you're sleeping with the Don?" Her jaw tensed. "I know what betrayal looks like," she said, "and I know what regret smells like, and it's all over you right now." He opened his mouth, then stopped. His eyes flicked over her shoulder. Tia froze. "What is it?" Enzo didn't answer. She turned just enough to see the reflection in the window. 2 men, moving up the stairs behind her, armed, eyes locked on her. Zane's voice echoed in her mind. "If he sees through it, I kill him first." But this wasn't a setup. It was a trap. "Enzo?" He stood, grabbed her by the arm. "Run!" "What?" He shoved her hard toward the back stairs. "Go! Now!" The men shouted, too late. She ducked behind a server station, yanked the knife from her boot, and ran. Bullets splintered brick behind her as she barreled down the fire escape. One hand gripped steel, the other clutched the knife. She hit the alley and didn't stop, sprinted, heart pounding. Footsteps thundered behind her. She rounded a corner, only to find another man waiting. Gun raised, but she didn't hesitate. Tia Romanoff, daughter of Victor, captive of Valenti, lunged. She drove the knife into his side. Twisted. He screamed. She grabbed the gun as he dropped. Hands shaking, blood on her sleeve, she turned and fired twice toward the shadows chasing her. Then silence. Footsteps gone. Breathing heavy, she backed into a wall and slid down to the ground, shaking, but alive. Zane kicked in the safe house door an hour later. Luca behind him, both armed. Tia stood in the center of the room, blood-streaked, shirt ripped, her hand still gripping the pistol Enzo had shoved into her purse after pulling her to safety. Zane didn't speak, just stared, then crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. She didn't cry, she just breathed him in. "You killed one?" he asked softly. "Maybe two." He pulled back to look at her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Enzo? He warned me," she said. "Saved me, but he's not innocent." "I know," Zane said darkly, "but he bought himself enough time for now." She let him hold her again, and this time she let herself feel it. Not just relief, not just adrenaline, power. She'd walked into a lion's den, and she hadn't just survived. She'd walked out with blood on her hands, and her soul still intact. Chapter 18. The First Kill. The water turned pink as it spiraled down the drain. Tia sat in the bathtub, knees pulled tight to her chest, arms wrapped around them. The steam clung to her skin, but the chill inside her wouldn't fade. Blood was supposed to wash off. But the memory didn't. She hadn't hesitated. She hadn't panicked. She'd killed a man. And she wasn't sorry. That scared her more than anything. Zane leaned against the bathroom door, arms crossed, listening to the quiet splash of water behind it. He hadn't gone in. Not yet. She'd locked it from the inside. Luca stood down the hall, waiting. "She good?" Luca asked. Zane didn't answer right away. "She's changing," he said finally. Luca nodded. "We all do." "Not like this. She's adapting." Zane turned, voice low. "She wasn't supposed to adapt. She was supposed to survive and walk away." Luca's eyes narrowed. "And now?" Zane didn't say it out loud. But the answer lingered in the silence. Now she was becoming one of them. Tia emerged an hour later, towel around her, skin damp, eyes clearer, but colder. Zane stood in the hallway, still waiting. He didn't speak, he just opened his arms. And for once, she stepped into them without hesitation. He held her like she might fall apart. But she didn't. "I stabbed him," she whispered into his chest. "I felt the knife go in." Zane's hand moved up and down her back, slow and steady. "And then what?" "I shot his friend." "Good." Tia leaned back, surprised. "That's it." He nodded once. "You're still standing. That's what matters." "I don't know how I'm supposed to feel." "You're not," Zane said. "You just keep going." She stared up at him. "You think I'm still good?" Zane leaned down, brushed his lips against her temple. "I think you're mine." Later that night, they sat together on the couch, her in clean clothes, him in black slacks and an open dress shirt, sipping whiskey. The fire crackled, but neither of them moved closer. The silence was its own conversation. Finally, she asked, "How long before he makes his move?" Zane knew who she meant. "Victor?" Tia nodded. "Soon," he said. "He's running out of pawns." "What'll he do?" Zane stared into the flames. "Something public, something loud. He's not subtle." As if summoned, Zane's burner buzzed on the table. Luca's voice came sharp through the speaker. "Turn on the news, now." Zane grabbed the remote and flipped the screen to a local channel. Tia's blood turned to ice. There he was, Victor Romanoff, at a press conference, smiling, looking every inch the grieving father. "I'm appealing to the people of this city, and to the authorities," Victor said, voice thick with fake emotion. "My daughter has been abducted, taken from our home, and now we believe she may be being held against her will by a dangerous man, Zane Valenti." Tia's mouth dropped open. Zane didn't flinch. Victor continued, "She is not a criminal. She is not a willing participant in this war. She is my child, and I will bring her home." The broadcast cut to a still photo, one of Tia, eyes wide, face lit up in a paparazzi shot from years ago. The headline below read, "Victor Romanoff seeks justice for kidnapped daughter." Tia stared in disbelief. "He's turning me into a victim." "He's turning you into leverage," Zane corrected. "He's making it political." "Now if I kill him, I look like the monster, and if you don't run back into his arms, he paints me as your captor." Tia's jaw clenched. "He's trying to control the narrative. And we're out of time." Zane stood, pacing now. "We can't hide anymore. This changes everything. He's baiting the media." And if he plays the right hands, he might even get the feds involved. Tia stood too. Then let's flip it. Zane turned. She stepped closer. Let me speak. He stared at her. To the media? To everyone, she said. Let me show them I'm not kidnapped. I'm not weak. I chose this. Zane's voice dropped. You realize what that does? It makes me your accomplice. It makes you my enemy, he corrected. To them, to everyone on your father's payroll. You'll lose everything. Tia met his eyes. I already have. They stood in silence, and then he said it. Do it. She blinked. Zane took her face in his hands. You want war? You've got it. But after this, there's no going back. I'm not going back. Then we burn the whole city down. Chapter 19. Her voice, his move. The camera rolled. Tia sat in front of a plain black wall. No makeup, hair down, face bare and unflinching. No filters, no staging, just truth. Zane stood behind the lens, silent. They didn't use a script. She didn't need one. She looked straight into the camera, green eyes fierce. My name is Tia Romanoff. Pause. I was not kidnapped. Another pause, sharper now. I left. Zane's hand tightened at his side. Tia continued, voice clear and unwavering. I left my father, Victor Romanoff, because I refused to be used as a pawn in a war I didn't start. I refused to be traded like a weapon or married off like leverage, and I will not be silenced. She leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. I am not afraid of the Valenti family. Zane did not take me. I chose him. The tension in the room cracked like a whip. I am not a victim, she said. I am a witness. To everything my father has done, the women sold, the enemies buried, the lies painted in gold. Her voice didn't tremble, not once. If anything happens to me, you'll know who to blame. She stared at the lens. Then, finally, I am not going home. I am building something new. Zane cut the camera. The room was dead silent. And for the first time since this war began, Tia Romanoff wasn't anyone's pawn. She was the spark. The video hit the dark web within the hour. Then the underground forums, then social, and finally the news. Some dismissed it as fake. Others gasped. But within 4 hours, it was trending in 3 countries. Not kidnapped, Romanoff daughter speaks. Zane and Luca paced the living room, eyes glued to the screen. It's spreading like wildfire. Zane stood by the window, staring out at the snowy trees. Good. Tia sat cross-legged on the couch, sipping tea with fingers that barely shook. I thought it would feel scarier, she said. It will, Luca muttered. Give it a minute. He wasn't wrong. The retaliation came just after midnight. Zane's burner rang sharp in the silence. He answered. Luca watched his face tighten. Zane's voice went quiet. Where? The answer made his jaw clench. He hung up, already grabbing his coat. What happened? Tia asked, standing. Zane turned to her, face carved from stone. Your father hit one of my safe houses. Brooklyn. She blinked. Was anyone there? Zane's silence answered for him. Then, 2 men, 1 runner, 1 driver, left hanging from the 2nd-story balcony, no heads. Tia's stomach twisted. A warning, a statement. Zane looked at her. He's sending a message. He wants me scared. He wants me reckless. Tia stepped closer. Then don't give him what he wants. Zane cupped her jaw, his thumb brushing along her cheek. I won't. But I'm done reacting. He leaned in, voice low and dangerous. It's our turn now. The war room in Zane's Midtown Tower was buzzing before dawn. Screens lined the walls. Satellite feeds, coded servers, shipping routes. Men moved like shadows around the room, armed, tense, ready. Zane stood at the head of the table, Tia by his side. Luca pointed to a map. He's got 3 active locations we can hit without triggering civilian alert. A weapons dock in Red Hook, a laundromat front in Brighton, and a shell casino in Jersey. Hit the dock first, Zane ordered. Blow it, then leak the surveillance. Make sure everyone knows who did it. And the casino? Luca asked. Not yet. Zane's voice was like steel wrapped in velvet. That one's for her. Luca glanced at Tia. She didn't flinch. Zane placed a hand on her lower back, his touch firm. You ready? He asked. Tia met his gaze. Let's burn his empire down. That night, the dock went up in flames. The video footage leaked an hour later. Zane's insignia sprayed in red across the charred shipping containers. For the girl you lost. The message was clear. The retaliation had begun. But Tia knew better. This wasn't just revenge. This was chess. And her father had made his next move, which meant the next strike would be personal. Chapter 20. The Sister's Name. The Valenti Tower was silent at midnight. Too silent. Zane stood at the window of the war room, watching the snow fall over Manhattan. His jaw clenched, his pulse a slow, deadly rhythm. Tia sat at the round table behind him, scrolling through the news. Something wasn't right. For 3 days after the dock explosion, Victor hadn't retaliated. No strikes, no media spin, no bodies, just quiet. And for a man like Victor Romanoff, silence was more dangerous than noise. Luca stepped into the room, phone in hand. His expression was grim. "We've got movement," Zane turned. "What kind?" "Personal." He handed over the phone. Zane looked at the screen and froze. Tia stood and crossed to him. "What is it?" Zane angled the phone so she could see, and her stomach dropped. It was a photo, blurry, snapped from a distance but unmistakable. A girl with green eyes and long brown hair being shoved into a black SUV. The timestamp, 3 hours ago. The location, a university campus upstate. Tia's hand flew to her mouth. "No," Zane caught her shoulders. "Who is it?" she whispered. "Natalia." Zane's jaw locked. "Your sister?" Tia nodded, eyes glassy. "She's 17. She lives with my aunt. She's not part of this." "She is now." They drove into the dark black SUVs cutting across icy roads at high speed. Tia sat in the passenger seat beside Zane, hands trembling in her lap. "She's just a kid," she whispered. Zane's voice was cold. "She's bait." Luca's voice crackled through the earpiece. "We've got eyes on the SUV, parked at the old textile warehouse in Gowanus. Security's tight. We're running thermal now." Zane tapped his fingers on the wheel. "Bodyguards?" "2 inside. 1 posted on the roof, probably more out of view." "Armed?" "Fully." Tia turned to Zane. "We can't storm the place. If he's using her, he'll kill her the second we get close." "I know." She saw it then, the war in Zane's eyes, the anger, the calculation, and something else too, regret. "You think he'll hurt her?" she asked. Zane didn't answer right away. Then, "I think he wants you to." They parked a block away and switched to silent comms. Zane checked his gun, then turned to Tia. "You don't go in. She's my sister. And that's exactly why you stay here, because if he sees you, she dies." Tia clenched her fists. "We can't just let him hold her." "We're not," Zane said. "We're trading something." "What?" Zane's eyes met hers. "Me." He walked into the warehouse alone, hands raised, no gun. Victor stood inside, arms folded, suit pristine. 2 guards flanked him. Natalia sat tied to a chair behind them, blindfolded but alive. Zane stopped 10 feet away. "I came," Victor smiled. "So predictable." "You got your message across." "Good." Zane's voice dropped. "Let her go." Victor stepped closer. "You took my daughter, taught her to kill, let her turn on her own blood." "She turned on you before I ever touched her." Victor's face darkened. He turned to Natalia. "Do you know what your sister is now? A killer, a whore, a traitor." Zane's hand twitched. "You say that again," he said quietly, "and I'll snap your jaw before your guards can blink." Victor only smiled, then he turned and walked behind Natalia's chair. "She's a sweet girl, still soft, still loyal. I could mold her, teach her what Tia refused to learn." Zane's gray eyes sharpened. "You touch her, and I end you." "I'm not going to hurt her," Victor said calmly. "I just want to offer you a deal." Zane didn't speak. "Give me Tia, tonight. Walk away. The war ends. No more blood." Zane exhaled, then smiled. It was slow, cold, fatal. "You still don't get it, do you?" Victor raised an eyebrow. "She was never yours to begin with." Zane moved, fast, too fast. He pulled the knife from his sleeve and drove it straight into the guard's neck before Victor could shout. Gunfire erupted. Zane grabbed Natalia, shielded her, and dragged her to the floor. He fired back with the fallen guard's weapon, dropping the second man before he even turned. Victor vanished behind a steel door. Coward. Zane slashed Natalia's bonds and yanked off the blindfold. "You okay?" She stared at him dazed. "Who?" "I'm Zane. Your sister sent me." Outside, Tia waited behind the wheel, engine running, heart pounding. The warehouse door burst open. Zane emerged, bloodied, Natalia in his arms. Tia leapt out of the SUV. Natalia's eyes widened. "Tia?" She ran to them. Zane passed the girl off and collapsed into the snow, breathing hard. Tia clutched her sister close, tears finally spilling. "I thought I lost you," Natalia whispered. "He said you were dead or worse." "I'm alive," Tia said, "because of him." Zane stood, voice hoarse. He made his move, and we just answered it. Chapter 21. Blood on the Inside. Tia sat at the edge of the bed, watching her little sister sleep. Natalia looked younger somehow. Wrapped in blankets, bruised but safe, she curled on her side like she used to as a child. The scar on her cheek was new. Victor's message was written in flesh. Tia brushed a strand of hair off her sister's forehead and whispered, "I won't let him touch you again. Ever." Zane stood in the doorway, silent. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't have to. "I want to take her somewhere safe," Tia said quietly. "She's not safe until this ends," Zane replied. Tia looked up. "Then let's end it." Downstairs, Luca was already waiting. Maps, phone logs, and heat signatures lined the wall of Zane's war room. The scent of coffee couldn't cover the tension in the air. "We have a leak," Luca said. "There's no other explanation. Victor knew where Natalia would be. That wasn't public." Zane crossed the room, jaw tight. "I've already locked down every contact we have in city operations, private security, drivers, accounts." Luca tapped a photo on the wall. It was small, fuzzy, a man in a dark coat exiting a diner. "This is Julian." Zane's eyes narrowed. "Julian who?" "Julian Voss, security lead on 3 of our safe houses, including the one in Brooklyn where Victor left his little warning." Tia's stomach turned. Zane cursed. "You vet him?" "Came clean, no record. Good handler, until 2 weeks ago. His bank account jumped 40Ks. Zane paced. "He flipped." "I think so." Tia stepped forward. "Bring him in." Zane met her gaze. "You sure?" She nodded. "No more second chances." Julian sat in the basement chair, the same chair Matteo once occupied. But this wasn't about mercy. It was about truth. Zane stood in front of him, arms crossed, gun at his hip. Tia watched from the shadows. Luca stood to the side, silent. Julian's face was calm. Too calm. "I didn't leak anything," he said. Zane cocked his head. "That's funny, because we traced a burner phone to a tower 2 blocks from the warehouse, the same burner that pinged near your apartment 6 times in the last month." Julian shrugged. "Coincidence." Zane smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I don't believe in coincidence." He drew his gun, set it on the table. "Talk." Julian's mouth tightened. "I did what I had to." Zane's voice lowered. "Explain." Julian looked straight at him. "I have a sister. Victor found her. Said if I gave him access to safe house intel, she'd walk free. I didn't think it would go this far." Tia stepped forward. "So you fed him my location, and Natalia's?" Julian looked at her and didn't flinch. "Yes." Zane reached for the gun. Tia stepped in. "Wait." Zane paused. Tia walked slowly to Julian's side. She looked him in the eye. "Where is your sister now?" "Gone," he said. "He let her go, I think. I haven't seen her since last week." Tia studied his face, then turned to Zane. "He's not lying, but he's not innocent either." Zane's jaw flexed. "You want me to kill him?" "No," she said. "Then what?" She stepped closer to Julian. "You're going to help us end him." Julian blinked. "What?" "You know his patterns, his guards, his front businesses. You give us everything. Names, access, safe houses, all of it." "And in return?" he asked. "You walk out of here with your life," she said. "But if you ever even think about flipping again..." Zane raised the gun and finished for her. "You don't walk out at all." Later, upstairs, Zane poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Tia took hers without a word. They stood by the window, watching the snow fall over the Hudson. "You didn't hesitate," he said. She sipped. "Neither did you." "Was it the right call?" She looked at him. "You tell me." Zane nodded slowly. "He's useful, but if he tries anything, I'll kill him myself," she said. Zane turned to face her fully. "You've changed." "I had to." He stepped closer. "Does that scare you?" Tia shook her head. "What scares me," she said, voice soft, "is that it feels good." Zane brushed his thumb across her jaw. "You're becoming something powerful. I'm becoming yours." His lips found hers before either of them could stop. And this time it wasn't about survival. It was about war, and the 2 people who were going to win it together. Chapter 22. Burn the Bank. The war room glowed under low lights. The windows were blacked out. The table was covered in blueprints and floor plans, vaults, corridors, security points. At the center was a single target, Rova Holdings, one of Viktor Romanoff's financial arms. A private Russian-backed investment firm fronting for arms deals and human movement contracts. And now, thanks to Julian, Zane had every access code and entry point. It wasn't a warehouse. It wasn't a casino. It was Victor's vault, and it was going up in flames. "West Side's the best breach point," Julian said, tapping the floor plan. "Night watch is light after 2 a.m., 4 cameras, 2 guards, motion-activated security inside." Tia leaned over the map, eyes sharp. "We don't just want to break it, we want to expose it. We get the files, send them to every reporter we own, then burn the building down. No secrets, just ruin." Zane arched a brow from across the room. "You're enjoying this." "I am," she said. "You?" Zane smirked. "Immensely." Luca looked between them. "We've got 5 hours. You want me running point?" "No," Zane said. Everyone turned. He looked at Tia. "She's leading this one." Julian's eyes widened. "You're serious?" Zane nodded. "She knows Victor's methods better than any of us. She's faster than you, smarter than your average soldier, and she's already bled for this war." Tia met his gaze, her voice steady. "I won't disappoint you. You haven't yet." Downstairs, the air was thick with concrete silence. Tia descended the steps slowly, one hand on the rail, the other holding a file. Matteo sat in the chair, legs shackled, face half in shadow. He looked up as she entered. "Back for another therapy session?" "Back for a warning," she said. She tossed the file onto the table in front of him. "Rova Holdings, we hit it tonight." Matteo's eyes flicked to the file, then back to her. "I see you've gone full Valenti." "I've gone full survivor," he smiled faintly. "That's worse." Tia crossed her arms. "I didn't come for your opinion. I came because you know how Victor launders money. I want to know if there's anything hidden in Rova's vaults, something off the books." Matteo's smile faded. His voice dropped. "If you hit that bank, you don't just cost Victor money. You open every door." "Good." "No," he said. "Not good. Because some of those doors aren't yours to open. He doesn't just use Rova for money." "Then what?" Matteo leaned forward. "He stores secrets, names, deals, compromising data on everyone, not just enemies, allies, politicians, feds. He's been holding the city hostage for years without ever firing a gun." Tia's eyes narrowed. "And you're just telling me this now? You didn't ask before." "Why warn me?" Matteo looked at her, something cold in his eyes now. "Because if you don't leave before that fire spreads, it won't be Victor that destroys you. It'll be the people who never wanted you to win." 2:57 a.m., Rova Holdings. The van rolled up to the side alley. Inside, Tia checked her harness, gloves, radio. Julian and 2 men flanked her, silent. Zane's voice crackled over comms. "Eyes on you. Go dark." Tia's voice came cool and crisp. "Copy that." They moved fast, cutting the power, jamming cameras, scaling the wall. Tia was first through the glass. Inside, cold, sterile white corridors, pulsing lights, and the heavy hum of money no one ever counted. She led the crew down to the records floor, disarmed the keypad, and entered the vault. Files, drives, cash, contracts. And in the center, a black leather briefcase with a Romanoff seal. She opened it. Inside were names, dozens, politicians, judges, officers, payouts, surveillance logs. Blackmail. It wasn't just leverage, it was control. She radioed in. "Zane, he's not just running a crime ring, he's running the entire lower half of Manhattan." Zane's voice came back low. "Copy. You got what you need?" Tia hesitated. Then, "Yeah, we torch it." Julian rigged the fire accelerant. Tia pulled the USB from the master server and slipped it into her jacket, and before they left, she sprayed one phrase in red across the vault walls: "No more kings." Then they lit the match. 4:15 a.m., Valenti safe house. Zane stood watching the live feed. Rova burned like a star. Tia walked in, coat scorched, hair wind-tossed, USB in hand. She handed it to him. "Everything's in there." He looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see Victor's daughter. He saw the queen at his side. "You did good," he said. She stepped close. This was just the beginning. His hand slid around her waist. His voice dropped to a growl. "Then let's finish the game." Chapter 23. Wanted. The fallout was immediate. Less than 12 hours after the Rova building burned to its bones, the first leaks hit the news. Bank transfers to sitting judges, wiretaps of NYPD brass, hidden camera footage of backdoor meetings between mayors and Mafia captains. Rova Holdings had been the black heart of Victor Romanoff's empire, and now it was bleeding into the streets. Zane watched it unfold from the penthouse, Tia at his side, both silent as names flashed across the television in red. Breaking. Romanoff Vault exposes corruption from Wall Street to City Hall. The anchor's voice was tight with awe. Sources say the files were sent anonymously to every major media outlet in New York within hours of the fire. The leak is being hailed as the most devastating intelligence breach in modern organized crime history. Tia leaned forward. "They're finally seeing him." Zane didn't move. He'd spent years fighting Victor from the shadows, but this was exposure, power shattering from within, and yet he felt nothing like victory. Not yet. By evening, protests had started outside City Hall. Multiple resignations rolled in, several judges were on leave, And yet, Victor Romanoff remained untouched. Untouched, but not still. Because by midnight, the headlines changed, and the trap was set. Wanted, Zane Valenti. Tia sat frozen as the screen changed. Her heart thudded in her chest. The news anchor spoke calmly, but the words hit like a blade. Law enforcement is now seeking Zane Valenti, suspected in the arson and destruction of Rova Holdings, an alleged leader of one of the most dangerous organized crime syndicates in the U.S. A photo flashed. Zane, in grayscale, face cold and sharp. Below it, a red banner. Armed and dangerous. Tia stood. This is retaliation. Zane didn't blink. It's insurance. He turned off the TV and faced the room. Luca and Julian looked ready to snap necks. He knew we'd leak the data, Zane said, so he built his own story first, sent files to the feds, claimed I torched his company to hide my own crimes. Luca cursed. And now they think you're the puppet master. They don't think, Zane growled. They're paid to believe. Tia's hands clenched. We have the real data. We can prove who owned Rova. Julian shook his head. Doesn't matter. Once the feds decide who the villain is, truth becomes noise. Zane met her eyes. We need to move, now. The penthouse was cleared in 10 minutes. Everything burned. Electronics destroyed. Trails wiped. Tia packed light. Documents. Guns. Natalia's encrypted phone. Zane loaded the SUV while Luca rerouted their aliases. Where to? Julian asked. Zane answered without looking up. Upstate, Blackridge cabin. They don't know I still own it. You sure? No, Zane said. But it's the only shot we've got. Tia slipped into the front seat beside him. You okay? He asked. She nodded. It's not the first time they tried to bury you. He looked at her. It might be the last. The safe house in Blackridge was quiet, secluded, hidden under pine trees, no cameras, no digital trail. Zane hadn't stepped foot inside in 4 years, not since Alessia. Now it was a bunker. He stood at the hearth while Tia lit candles and pulled Natalia's blanket over the couch. She was already asleep, untouched by the storm. You should rest, Zane said. Tia turned. You're not. I can't. She stepped closer. Because you're on a wanted list? Because now I'm not fighting for territory. His eyes found hers. I'm fighting for you. She stepped into his arms. The weight between them was no longer lust or power. It was purpose. You won't lose me, she whispered. I already did once, he said. I won't survive it again. She kissed him like a promise. 2:41 a.m., Romanoff Estate. Victor Romanoff watched the Rova footage burn on loop from his office. His assistant entered quietly. It's done. The FBI picked up the trail. They'll hit the Brooklyn safe house by sunrise. Victor lit a cigar. Zane's always been clever, he said. But even clever men bleed when the dogs come barking. The assistant hesitated. And the girl? She chose fire, Victor said coldly. Let her burn with him. He turned toward the city skyline. And when it's over, he smiled, I'll rebuild on their ashes. Chapter 24. No safe havens. Snow drifted past the windows in soft sheets, blanketing the forest outside. The Blackridge cabin, once a haven, had turned cold and tense overnight. Tia sat at the kitchen table, Natalia beside her, flipping through the decrypted files from Rova on a burner laptop. Zane stood by the window, staring out, silent, unblinking. He hadn't said more than 10 words in an hour. Luca entered from the back door, brushing snow off his shoulders. Roads are clear, no movement yet, but the satellite drone caught something on I-87. Black SUVs, could be feds. Zane's jaw tightened. How far out? 40 minutes, if it's them. Assume it is, Zane said. Tia closed the laptop. Then we run. We can't, Zane said. The forest roads will bottleneck. If they spot us, it's a chase, and we're outgunned. Julian, now perched near the fireplace, glanced up. You still have that failsafe? Zane turned. Tia narrowed her eyes. What failsafe? Julian stood. There's one person who might know how to redirect federal attention, Zane growled. No, Tia stepped forward. Who? Julian hesitated. Then, Matteo. Downstairs, the basement. Matteo looked up as Zane descended the stairs, Luca behind him. He smirked. Back so soon? Zane didn't smile. You have one shot. One. Matteo raised an eyebrow. To do what? Redirect the feds. You worked with Romanoff long enough to know how he bought their loyalty. Matteo leaned back. What do I get? Air, Zane snapped. Maybe daylight. Tia appeared at the top of the steps. You get redemption. That made Matteo pause. He looked at her. Funny, you sound like Alessia when she begged me to run. Zane stiffened. Tia stepped slowly down. I'm not Alessia, she said, and this is your last chance to matter. Matteo held her gaze, then slowly said, There's a man, FBI liaison named Carver. Clean rep. But he takes private meetings with Victor's assistant once a month. But he's same spot, Hotel Monroe. I give you the room number, the time. You leak the footage, Zane finished, and the feds turn on each other. Exactly, Zane nodded to Luca. Get it done, Matteo called after him. And Zane? Zane didn't turn. If this works, kill him slow. 30 minutes later, Tia, wrapped in her thick coat, leaned against the porch railing, watching the pine trees blur under the wind. Zane stepped outside. He stood beside her, close but not touching. Do you trust him? She asked. No, Zane said, but I trust his hate. Tia nodded. If the feds turn on Victor, it buys us time. Time for what? To finish this. Zane turned, brushing her cheek with his knuckle. You keep finding ways to stay. I don't run. Maybe you should. She stepped closer. You're the only place I'd run to. Zane's mouth brushed hers. Warm, slow, fierce. It wasn't hunger this time, it was ownership. 1 hour later, Midtown Manhattan footage leaked online. Grainy, low-res surveillance of Victor's assistant handing a thick envelope to FBI agent Carver in the lobby of Hotel Monroe. The timestamp, 2 days before the Rova fire. The internet lit up, whispers turned to roars, hashed FBI gate, Carver cover-up, Romanoff bribe. The bureau went silent, and just like that, the convoy vanished from the map. Back in Blackridge, Luca's voice came through the radio. They're pulling back, at least for now. We've got room to move again. Julian stood. So what now? We run? Zane turned to Tia. No, she said. We end it. Zane's eyes burned into hers. How? Tia's voice was calm, cold. We take down the man who taught the devil how to lie. Victor, she nodded. It's time. Chapter 25. The Pact Before the Fire. The sound of boots on wet earth echoed in the forest as Zane stepped beyond the cabin's clearing. Luca and Julian followed close behind, hands on their weapons, eyes scanning the dense tree line. But Zane wasn't worried about federal agents anymore. He was hunting loyalty. He stopped near the edge of a frozen stream. A single man waited there, leaning against a moss-covered tree. Tall, broad, thick-bearded. A scar ran from his temple to his collarbone. Ezra, Zane said. The man looked up. You look older. Time's been violent. Ezra grinned. My kind of clock. Zane stepped closer. I need your crew. Last I heard, Ezra said, you swore you'd never ask me for anything again. That was before Victor put a target on the woman I'm building a future with. Ezra tilted his head. Tia Romanoff. You know? Ezra smirked. The whole damn city knows. She burned his vault, took his men, took his name and spit on it. Zane's voice dropped. She didn't spit, she set it on fire. Ezra nodded once. All right then. Zane raised an eyebrow. That easy? Ezra's grin faded. You killed my brother. You left me bleeding in Madrid. But you were right to do it. I knew it then. I know it now. Zane didn't blink. So this is forgiveness? No, Ezra said. This is war, and I've been bored for far too long. Back at the cabin, Tia stood over the war table, reviewing maps of Victor's estate in northern New Jersey, a massive private compound wrapped in security, surveillance, and death. Natalia sat nearby, sipping tea and watching silently. You're going to him, Natalia finally said. Tia didn't answer. You're going to kill our father. Tia turned. He's not our father. He's a ghost in a suit. Natalia stood. You used to call him Papa. You used to think he could fix the world. I was wrong, Tia said softly. Natalia's voice cracked. Then, who are we? Tia stepped forward and hugged her sister tight. We're what comes next. That night, Tia sat in front of a small wooden box she hadn't opened since the night of her capture. Inside was the ring, her mother's, gold, thin, worn at the edges. Victor used to tell her it was a symbol of strength. Now she knew better. It was a chain. Tia closed her fist around it and walked outside into the snow. Zane was there, alone, watching the stars bleed across the black sky. You all right? He asked. No, she said honestly. He turned, saw the ring in her hand, and said nothing. She looked up at him. I want to marry you. Zane blinked. You what? I want your name, she said. Not because I need protection, but because I want the world to know who I chose. Zane's expression shifted slowly. Rage, surprise, reverence. Tia, we do it now, she said, before we go to war, before we face him, because if I die tomorrow, I want to die as yours. Zane crossed the space between them in one breathless stride. Tia Romanoff died the day you burned his name. He reached for her hand. Kiss me as Tia Valenti. And when he did, when their lips met under the stars and the pine trees and the silence, there was no blood, no bullets, no ghosts. Just two wolves. vowing to burn the kingdom to the ground, together. Chapter 26. The Wolf's Council. The morning after their vow, the cabin came alive. Ezra arrived with 3 trucks full of mercs, tattooed, hard-faced, ex-Special Forces types who didn't ask questions. They came with crates of weapons, encrypted radios, thermal gear, and heavy-grade explosives. By noon, Zane had turned the cabin into a command center. The map of the Romanoff compound stretched across the wall, pins marking every weak point. "We hit at dusk," Zane said, pointing. "The front gate is decoy. We breach from the service tunnel. Here. Tia leads the recon unit through the greenhouse line. Luca, Ezra, and I take the western flank." Tia stood beside him, arms crossed, dressed in tactical black. She no longer looked like a captive. She looked like the next dawn's queen. Julian stepped forward. "I can take comms from the secondary position, cover the perimeter." Zane hesitated. "You sure you're clean?" Julian tensed. "I gave you the Rova vault. I bled for this. I just want to know if I'm bringing a soldier or a survivor." Julian's jaw tightened. "Both." Tia met Zane's eyes. "He's solid. Then we roll." That afternoon, Tia stood alone in the woods, head set off, gun slung low on her hip. Natalia found her leaning against a tree, snow dusting her shoulders. "You're leaving tonight," Natalia said softly. "I have to." "Will you come back?" Tia turned. "I don't know." Natalia's eyes filled. "What if he kills you? Then I'll haunt him." Natalia smiled through the tears. "Promise me something. Anything. If you win, don't become him." Tia's throat tightened. "I won't. You're stronger than he ever was." "No," Tia whispered. "I'm just not afraid to burn." Back inside, War Room, Luca stepped up to the screen, flipping through Victor's known fortification points. "We hit hard fast. 5-minute window before backup from his Jersey crew can respond." Ezra pointed to a gate on the west. "That's our blind spot. If he's storing anything volatile, hostages, leverage, extra guards, it'll be there." Zane nodded. "No mercy. Everyone inside is dirty." Julian spoke up from behind. "Except the girl." Zane turned. "What girl?" Julian hesitated. "There's chatter. Victor's holding someone. Insurance. Not Natalia. Another girl. No one knows her name." Tia froze. Luca's eyes narrowed. "Trap? Definitely," Zane said. "But we're springing it anyway." Ezra chuckled. "You've changed." Zane didn't smile. "I've got something worth dying for now." An hour later, perimeter patrol, Luca took a call. Low tone, short sentences. When he returned to the group, his face was pale. "We have a problem," he said quietly. Zane looked up. "What kind?" "Intercepted a Romanoff signal from the north sector. Scrambled frequency. But I recognized the voice." Zane's body tensed. "Who?" Luca looked between them, then said the name. "Enzo." The room went dead silent. Tia stepped forward. "That's not possible." "He saved me. He helped me escape." Luca shook his head. "He sold out your location 10 minutes ago. Gave them access to the cabin's GPS. He's still working for Victor." Zane's fist slammed the table. "Where is he now?" 3 miles north. Still transmitting." Tia's heart pounded. "Let me go." "No," Zane growled. "You're leading the op. I'll deal with him." Tia locked eyes with him. "He was my family. He betrayed you." Zane said, "So now I bury him." 3 miles out, Enzo's last stand. They found him crouched behind a tree, transmitter in hand. Zane stepped out of the snow, gun drawn. Enzo didn't move. "I wondered how long it would take you to find me." "You fed her to your boss," Zane said coldly. "Then you played hero. She was always his," Enzo whispered. "Until you poisoned her." Zane fired once. Enzo collapsed into the snow. No final words, no apology, just silence. Back at the cabin, Tia stood at the window, staring at the horizon, hands clenched. Zane returned, blood on his boots. He didn't speak. She nodded once, and then she said it. "Let's go kill my father." Chapter 27. The First Gate Falls. The convoy rolled in silence. 3 black SUVs cut through the Jersey pines under moonlight, tires crunching over frozen gravel. No headlights, no radios, just the hum of engines and the pulse of war building in their chests. Zane rode in the lead vehicle, flanked by Luca and Ezra. Tia sat beside him, gloved fingers resting on her thigh holster, eyes locked forward. Her heartbeat was steady, her decision made. This was no rescue mission. This was a purge. The Romanoff compound, outer perimeter. Tucked behind a false corporate sign and 2 miles of security fencing, the Romanoff estate sprawled like a sleeping monster. Glass walls, black stone towers, and surveillance domes blinking red in the dark. It was a fortress. And tonight, it would burn. Ezra's voice crackled through the comms. Perimeter guards spotted. Infrared confirms at least 4 on the east side, 2 on the roof. Zane, target the eastern blind spot. Take them clean. No gunfire. Tia nodded, already climbing out of the SUV. She moved like a shadow. 2:14 a.m., first breach. The first guard never saw it coming. Tia's blade slipped beneath his ribs, fast and deep. She caught him before he dropped, laying his body silently against the wall. 2 more followed, one with a knife to the throat, another silenced by a dart Luca fired from the trees. Within 7 minutes, the outer gate was theirs. Tia radioed in. Perimeter cleared, no alarms. Zane's voice came back. Move to phase 2. Inside the walls, the greenhouse tunnel was exactly as the blueprint showed, long, overgrown, and unused. Old maintenance lights flickered above a stone walkway lined with roses and creeping vines. It would have been beautiful if it weren't crawling with landmines. Tia crouched low, scanning. Pressure triggers, she whispered. Julian behind her nodded. If we step wrong, we light up the whole path. Then we don't step wrong. She led them forward, 5 slow feet at a time, navigating a path between tiles, eyes scanning for the subtle rise of a rigged plate or the metallic glint of wire. Behind them, the night waited. In front of them, Victor's heart. In the main house control room, Victor Romanoff sipped from a glass of dark whiskey, watching the monitors flicker. Footage from the outer fence showed blood on the snow. The sensors at the greenhouse tunnel were going dark, one by one. He smiled. She's coming. His assistant stood nearby, stiff with tension. Should we sound the internal alarm? No, Victor said. Let them enter. But sir, they want to kill me? Victor raised his glass. Let them try. 2:42 a.m., the hall of glass. Tia breached the interior first. Slipping through a service corridor and into the eastern atrium, an all-glass hallway lit from beneath by golden sconces and overhead chandeliers. Too open, too quiet. Zane joined her seconds later, his gun drawn. Something's off, she said. He nodded. He's baiting us. Julian's voice came over the radio. We're in position, west hallway clear. Tia responded. Hold until... The floor exploded. Chaos. The blast tore through the lower wing, sending smoke and concrete through the air. The impact threw Tia back against the wall, pain ripping through her shoulder. Screams echoed from the west hall. Julian's voice came through the comm, screeching, distorted, then silent. Zane pulled her to her feet. Move, he barked. Blood dripped down her arm, but she ran. In the central corridor, smoke curled like ghosts around the shattered chandeliers. Gunfire erupted from the shadows. Romanoff's guards in black tactical armor, flooding the halls with suppressing fire. Ezra and Luca returned fire from the flanks, pushing into the heart of the compound. Zane covered Tia as she dove for cover behind a marble column. Where is he? She shouted. Zane fired 3 shots, dropped a guard, then pointed. Top floor, master wing, that's where he runs his game. Then we cut the head off now. 3:09 a.m., climbing the stairwell. The stairs to the master floor were slick with blood. Tia gripped the railing, ignoring the throb in her shoulder. Zane's breath was at her back. Their boots echoed against marble and steel. They reached the final landing. 2 guards waited. Tia didn't blink. She put a bullet in the first before Zane snapped the second's neck. The doors to Victor's study loomed ahead, tall, oak, and open. Too open. Zane raised his gun, Tia raised hers, and together they stepped inside. Victor waited, alone, seated behind a long desk of obsidian glass. Cigar lit, whiskey poured, not a tremble in his body. Well, he said, smiling, look what I raised. Tia aimed straight at his heart. I'm not yours. No, Victor said softly, but you are, still mine to ruin. Zane raised his gun next. Victor didn't flinch. Go ahead, he said. Shoot me. But I wonder, before the trigger pulls, do either of you want to know what I've kept in the vault downstairs? Zane's eyes narrowed. What? Victor smiled. I kept her name, her picture, her death certificate. Tia's heart stopped. Zane froze. Victor said it slowly. Tia Valenti. Chapter 28. Her name was a knife. Silence pulsed in the room. Victor sat motionless behind his obsidian desk, hands folded, eyes sharp with cruel amusement. Across from him, Zane stood frozen. His gun didn't waver, but his soul cracked. Tia stood beside him, her weapon also raised, but it wasn't Victor she was staring at. It was Zane, and something inside him had gone dark. Say it again, Zane said, his voice raw. Victor took a slow drag from his cigar. Tia Valenti, born September 4th, died, allegedly, October 12th. But death records, my dear Don, are easy to fake when you own the coroner. Zane's knuckles whitened around the trigger. Tia's voice cut through. "You're lying." Victor smiled at her. "I used to lie. Now I just reveal things." Zane stepped forward. "What did you do to her?" "I did nothing," Victor said. "She's not mine, not my blood, but she was leverage." Zane's voice dropped into a growl. "Where is she?" Victor tapped his chest. "Closer than you think." Tia moved quickly, placing herself slightly between Zane and Victor. "Zane, look at me." He didn't. "I buried her," Zane said, almost to himself. "I found her body in the river. I identified her." "And did you examine it?" Victor said quietly. "Or did grief let you believe whatever you were told?" Zane's jaw clenched. His breathing became shallow. "He's trying to break you," Tia said. "This is what he does." Victor leaned back. "I don't have to break him. All I have to do is remind him what he's already lost." Tia turned her weapon slightly, aimed for the space between Victor's eyes. "You're out of pawns." "Oh," Victor said, "I'm just starting." He pressed a button on the underside of his desk. A screen behind him flickered to life. Grainy surveillance footage. A woman, chained to a wall, thin, bruised, long black hair. Zane stepped forward, breath hitched. Tia looked at the screen, then at him. "Zane," he didn't blink. "It's her." Tia's heart twisted. "You're sure?" Zane stared. "That's my sister." Back in the hallway, Luca's voice crackled over the radio. "East Wing's breached. We've secured the lower vault. One survivor pulled from cell block." Zane grabbed the radio. "Who?" Luca's voice came back, confused. "She won't talk, but—" "Zane, she looks like Alessia." Zane didn't wait. He turned, shoving the door open, gun lowered, mind in a blur. Tia followed, heart pounding. They ran through blood-slick corridors, past Ezra's men who stood silent with shock, down 2 flights of concrete stairs, into the vault. She stood in the center of the room, chained, face bruised, hair matted, but alive. "Alessia!" Zane dropped his gun. "Alessia!" he breathed. Her eyes met his. Recognition sparked. "Zane!" He crossed the room in seconds, pulled her into his arms. Tia stood frozen near the door. She didn't interrupt, didn't speak. She just watched as her husband, her Don, held the ghost of the woman he lost. 10 minutes later, the compound burned. Luca and Ezra's men cleared every last Romanoff loyalist, room by room. Tia walked Victor to the edge of the main hall, dragging him by the collar. He was bloodied, disarmed, but smiling. "You've lost," she said. "I bought myself time," he whispered. "You'll never keep her safe now." Tia shoved him to his knees. Behind her, Zane approached, Alessia in a medic's care behind them. Zane looked down at the man who broke him and said nothing. Tia held out her gun, but Zane didn't take it. He turned to her. "No." Tia's brow furrowed. "What?" He knelt in front of Victor. "You don't get an ending," Zane said. "You don't get peace. You live." Victor sneered. "You think prison will hold me?" Zane smiled coldly. "I'm not sending you to prison." He turned to Luca. "Drop him in enemy territory. Let the men you betrayed do the rest." Tia exhaled. It was worse than death. It was justice. Hours later, outside the compound, Alessia rested in the back of the medic van, sleeping. Zane stood by the flames, watching the Romanoff estate burn. Tia approached, quiet. He didn't look at her. "I never thought I'd see her again," he said. "I know. She's alive, but I don't feel whole." Tia nodded. "Because she's not the only thing you lost." Zane finally turned. Tia's voice shook. "You had to go to her. I get it. But I need to know. Do I still matter?" He reached for her hand. "You're my future, Tia." She blinked hard. Zane kissed her forehead, slow and reverent. "I buried the past. I'm done chasing ghosts." He looked back at the flames. "And you're the fire I'll never let go of." Chapter 29. Smoke Never Settles. The flames had long died, but the smoke, the kind that clung to memory and regret, still hung thick in the air. Zane stood at the edge of the Romanoff estate ruins, the early light casting a gray haze over the scorched stone. Behind him, the world he'd burned now lay quiet. No more gunshots, no more screaming. But peace had a cost, and tonight it would come due. Back at the safe house, Alessia sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes blank, skin pale under the bruises. A mug of tea sat untouched beside her. She hadn't spoken much since the extraction. She hadn't cried. She simply existed. Tia stood across the room, arms folded, watching her carefully. "She said anything?" Zane asked as he entered. Tia shook her head. "Barely more than a whisper. She recognized me." "Yes, but she hasn't asked about anything since. Not you, not what happened, not even why she was there." Zane sat beside his sister. Alessia, do you know where you were? Alessia blinked. Then finally, it was dark. It was always dark, until I heard your name. Zane swallowed. Do you remember who kept you there? Alessia looked toward Tia and said nothing. Later that night, War Room Luca, Ezra, and Julian stood around the table. Zane leaned over a fresh set of intelligence reports while Tia stayed back, reading the room. Ezra tapped a map of Brooklyn. Victor's chain's cut, but his lieutenants are scrambling. Word is they're splitting into factions. Half want out, the other half want revenge, Julian added. And someone's moving quietly through the wreckage, buying up his contacts, no ID yet. Zane looked up. Someone's trying to step into Victor's shoes? Or bury what's left, Luca muttered. Tia straightened. We need to find out who. Ezra gave a slow nod. Fast, before they come for us. That same night, Tia's room, Tihare. She sat at the vanity brushing her hair, her mind miles away. The door opened behind her. Zane entered silently. He looked exhausted, jacket off, blood clean, but still wearing the weight of everything they'd survived. She met his eyes in the mirror. Can't sleep? No. Is it Alessia? It's us. She turned. Talk to me. Zane sat on the edge of the bed. You stood by me when everything fell apart. When I doubted myself, when I nearly lost everything. You never flinched. Because I believed in you. I still don't know how to hold both truths, he said softly, that Alessia's alive, and that I still love you more. Tia stood, walked to him, and cupped his face. You don't have to choose. We all carry ghosts, but I'm the fire in your chest, Zane, not the shadow behind you. He pulled her into his lap, wrapped his arms around her, held her like an anchor. They didn't speak again, because words weren't necessary anymore. Meanwhile, in the dark, across the city under a different roof, a figure slipped into a locked room, one that used to belong to Victor Romanoff. The figure was lean, confident. They typed quickly, pulling files from Victor's backup server, one by one. Loyalists' names, hidden contacts, bank accounts, encrypted kill orders. The figure smiled. Power didn't die. It simply changed hands. And now, it wore a new face. Back at the safe house, 2:47 a.m. Alessia stood at the window, watching snow fall across the pine trees. She touched the glass absently. Behind her, Tia approached. Quiet. You should rest. Alessia didn't turn. I can't. Memories? No, she said softly. Instinct, Tia's brow furrowed. Instinct. Alessia turned then, eyes calm but unreadable. You think this is over, she said. Tia folded her arms. Isn't it? Alessia stepped closer. No. And then she said something that froze the blood in Tia's veins. I know who Victor was afraid of, and it wasn't you. Chapter 30. The name no one spoke, Tia didn't move. Couldn't. Alessia's voice echoed in her head, sharp and cold. I know who Victor was afraid of, and it wasn't you. Outside, the snow continued falling, soft, silent, unbothered. Inside, everything shook. Tia stared at her. Who? Alessia didn't blink. He called him the architect. Never a real name, just a whisper. Tia's pulse picked up. What was he? His master, Alessia said. His leash holder. The reason Victor built the empire the way he did. Every wiretap, every bribe, every politician wasn't just for power. It was for protection. Protection from who? Alessia's lips curved in something that wasn't a smile. From the man who designed all of this, and who's about to realize it's been burned to the ground. In the war room, 3:17 a.m., Zane stood at the center table with Luca and Julian as satellite feeds updated across the map. Activity near the Bronx dockyard, Julian said. 2 unmarked vans, armed security, not Victor's men. Luca pointed to a terminal node. Same group tried buying up Victor's ghost accounts last week. We didn't move on it because we thought it was stragglers. It's not stragglers, Tia said as she entered. Zane turned. She didn't waste time. Alessia said Victor worked under someone else. Someone he never named, but feared. Zane's brow darkened. More fear than what he had for me. Different kind, Tia said. Victor feared pain, but this guy, the architect, he feared exposure. Julian leaned in. I've heard that name before. Everyone looked at him. He stepped to the terminal, pulled up a financial chain of shell companies. Here, look at this payout list from Rova Holdings. $4 million in off-ledger transfers every quarter. All funneled through a dead account. But check the receiver name. Luca read it aloud. Aurelius Consulting. Zane frowned. Sounds made up. Exactly, Julian said. It's not a business, it's a message. Aurelius, as in Marcus Aurelius, the Roman strategist. It's code, the guy behind it isn't building an empire. Tia finished it. He's building control. Later that day, upstairs, Tia checked on Alessia, who now rested under blankets with a guarded stare. You said Victor feared the architect, Tia said. How do you know? Alessia looked up. Because I met him. Tia's spine straightened. He came once. During the second year I was locked in that compound. Tall, precise, face like stone. He looked at Victor like he was nothing. What did he say to you? Alessia's voice turned hollow. He said, your insurance, nothing more. Tia clenched her fists. Do you remember what he looked like? I remember his eyes, Alessia whispered. Steel gray, cold, smarter than anyone in the room. He doesn't run crews. He doesn't carry a gun. He builds people, turns them into weapons. Tia stared at her. Do you think he's coming? Alessia met her gaze. I think he already has. That night, a new transmission care, a coded signal came in through the Valenti comms, top-tier encryption, origin unknown. Luca played it aloud. A modulated voice echoed through the speakers. To the ones who shattered a kingdom, thank you. Static crackled. You've removed the shield. Now you'll see what hides behind it. Another pause. Tell Zane Valenti, Alessia was never yours to protect. The line went dead. Silence followed. Zane's face turned to stone. Tia whispered, he's taunting us. No, Zane said, he's testing us. Midnight, on the balcony, Tia found Zane outside, his jacket undone, snow falling in his hair. You believe her, Tia said, I do. And you believe him? Prosody. I believe he's already here, watching, waiting. Tia stepped beside him. So what do we do? Zane's voice dropped into the cold. We stop reacting. No more cleaning up messes. No more waiting for an attack. He turned, steel in his eyes. We find him. We expose him. And we end it. Tia nodded. Together. Always. He took her hand. And for the first time, it wasn't about rage. It was about control. They weren't fighting ghosts anymore. They were hunting gods. Chapter 31, The Man Without a Face. Somewhere in Lower Manhattan. In a penthouse lined with glass, the architect stood alone. No name, no blood ties, just silence and legacy. The world knew men like Victor, men like Zane, loud, brutal, worshipped in shadows. But the architect? He was the one who taught shadows to kneel. The monitors before him glowed with feeds, Valenti's compound, hospital logs, encrypted chatter across 5 syndicates. He moved through it all with surgical precision. Zane Valenti had become a problem. Tia Romanoff had become something worse, unpredictable. He picked up a glass of bourbon, didn't drink, just stared through it. Emotion, he murmured. The virus of strategy. He pressed a button. The surveillance footage from Victor's vault appeared. Zane and Tia dragging Victor to his knees. He watched it twice, then smiled. They've removed the disease, he said softly. Now they've made room for me. Meanwhile, Valenti Safehouse Tia paced in front of the war board, the names of every Romanoff affiliate now crossed out in red. She didn't like stillness. Stillness meant blind spots. And in this game, blind spots killed. Julian entered with a file, tight-lipped. I dug deeper into that company, Aurelius Consulting, Tia spun. And? It's not a shell. It's a front for a sovereign wealth fund out of Europe. Silent money, off-market transfers, elite-level encryption. But here's the twist. He handed her the folder. They bought controlling interest in Carrion Technologies. Tia's brow furrowed. That's a biotech firm. Julian nodded. One with access to military-grade surveillance contracts and biotracking patents. Victor worked with flesh and cash, Tia muttered. This guy's working with systems. Zane entered mid-conversation, his coat still wet with snow. What'd I miss? Tia looked up. We found his leash. Zane's eyes darkened. Say that again. Aurelius owns Carrion Tech. Carrion provides facial recognition data to law enforcement, security firms, and high-clearance government programs. This guy's not just hiding behind money. He's watching through it. Zane cracked his knuckles. So let's make him blink. Hours later, a plan forms. Ezra pulled together a team of cyber operatives, ghost coders, dark web dealers, off-grid trackers. Their task: infiltrate Carrion's system, find the architect's signal trail. Best shot we've got is bait, one hacker said. Make him think you're coming for one asset when you're really coming for him. Tia smirked. He thinks we're soldiers. Zane, let's teach him we're hunters. That night, across the city, the architect stood at a private window in the back of an art gallery, empty champagne glass in one hand, encrypted phone in the other. A message appeared. Valenti breach attempt. Port 7, Carrion mainframe. He smiled faintly. No finesse, he muttered. Then he opened a secondary alert. What he saw next made him freeze. Asset 11 compromised. He clicked. It was his face. One of the carrion servers had been triggered, an identity file buried under a dozen failsafes. It wasn't full exposure, but it was close. Too close. He tossed the phone into the fireplace, watched it burn, and said one word, Valenti. Back at the safe house, midnight, Tia burst into the ops room where Zane was reviewing target footage. She tossed a flash drive onto the table. We've got it. Zane looked up. His name? Not yet, but we forced his system to react. He torched his own identity file. Zane smirked. Which means he's scared. Julian entered behind her. Or setting a trap. Tia glanced at Zane. He's too calculated for revenge. He'll move sideways, cut off resources, hit our legal fronts, expose something we're hiding. Zane nodded. Then we stop hiding. He reached for the red marker and circled Carrion's NYC office. Tomorrow, we pay them a visit. Final scene. Outside Carrion Technologies. From a nearby rooftop, a single sniper crouched in the snow, weapon steady. He stared through the scope at the Carrion building. He wasn't aiming for anyone. Not yet. Just watching. Waiting. He pressed a button on his headset. A voice answered. Confirm position, he whispered back. Target is watching them watch him. The game just changed. The line went silent. Then came the architect's final words. Let them come. I've already won. Chapter 32. The Skin of the Machine. Carrion Technologies, Midtown Manhattan. It looked harmless. Glass walls, stainless steel lobby, a sculpture of a DNA helix suspended over a shallow reflecting pool. People in tailored suits sipping oat milk lattes and speaking softly into invisible earpieces. Nothing about the building screamed criminal empire. But Tia felt it the moment she stepped through the door. The air was too clean. Zane walked beside her in a charcoal gray suit, hair slicked back, jaw locked. His cover, international investor from a Monaco-based hedge fund. Tia played his acquisitions partner. They were already in the system. Julian had spoofed digital IDs that passed every scan. For now, be quick, Julian's voice came over their comms. I can keep you in the system for 15 minutes. Any longer, and someone upstairs will notice you don't belong. Copy that, Zane said. The receptionist smiled as they approached. Mr. Vale, Miss Marin, we've been expecting you. Zane smiled coolly. Of course you have. The elevator. Tia pressed the button for sublevel 3, the floor Julian had flagged for restricted data processing. As the doors slid shut, she turned to Zane. You ready? He looked at her, gray eyes hard. If I die in here, make sure they never rebuild. Tia gave a half smile. You're not dying. I mean it. I know, but you're still not dying. Sublevel 3. The elevator opened into a sterile corridor lined with biometric locks and fiber optic cable hubs. 2 guards stood outside the main server room. Zane moved first, stepping toward them with a calm, businesslike nod. The guard scanned his ID, cleared. Then Tia's, cleared again. They entered, and instantly felt it. The hum of live servers. Hundreds of data streams flowing in real time. Surveillance feeds, audio logs, biometric signatures. This wasn't just tech. This was total vision. Tia moved to the nearest terminal, plugged in Julian's decryption tool, and started the trace. Zane paced nearby, watching the exits. 10 minutes, Julian said in their ears. You've triggered a secondary protocol. No alarms, but someone's watching now. Let them, Zane muttered. On the 50th floor, the architect stood in front of a curved wall of glass, overlooking the city like a god. A silent alert blinked on the screen beside him. Valenti in the system. He didn't react. Instead, he turned to the woman seated behind him. Dark hair, slim build, high cheekbones. She wore gloves and a smirk. He's brave, she said. He's predictable, the architect replied. But she's the problem. He tapped the screen. Let's give her a riddle. Back in the server room, Tia stared at the lines of code unraveling in front of her. Metadata from fake shell companies, financial traffic, and then a name. Alexei Varin. She froze. Zane moved behind her. You recognize it? She nodded. One of my father's deepest allies. Used to run black market medical shipments through Slovakia. My father said he vanished 5 years ago. Zane narrowed his eyes. Then why is his signature on every Carrion account? Julian's voice came through, shaken. Guys, I just got flagged. They're reversing the trace. You need to move, now. The screen blinked once. A message appeared. Hello, Tia. Another line followed. Do you know who you really are? Tia's breath caught. Zane grabbed her shoulder. Out. Now. They ran. The elevator shaft. Seconds later, the doors opened on a locked security floor. 4 guards, automatic rifles. Zane didn't wait. He threw the flash grenade Julian had prepped and tackled the first 2 while Tia dropped low and fired. Bullets ricocheted. Blood splattered the wall. The guards fell. But one of them, as he gasped his last breath, whispered something. Tia leaned in, horrified. He said her mother's name. Back on the street, SUV escape. Julian drove like hell, tires screeching, heart pounding. Zane and Tia sat in the back seat, weapons ready, eyes scanning the skyline. Zane turned to her. "What did he mean? About who you are?" Tia shook her head slowly. "I don't know. He knew your mother. I thought I knew everything Victor kept from me." She looked down at her hands. "But I'm starting to wonder if Victor was just a piece of what I was born into." Zane took her hand in his. "No matter what they throw at you, you're mine." Tia looked up, jaw hard. "Then let's show them what it means to belong to a Don." Final scene, the architect's chamber. The woman with the gloves removed them slowly. Underneath, her palms bore identical black tattoos, a Roman numeral on the left, a sigil of a phoenix on the right. "She'll come looking," she said. The architect replied, "I want her to. The phoenix always returns to ash." Chapter 33, Blood on Paper. Valenti Compound, 4:17 a.m. Tia stared at the security footage from Carrion, replaying the moment again and again, the guard gasping her mother's name with his last breath. Elena Romanoff. She hadn't heard it spoken in over a decade. Not since her mother's funeral. Not since Victor Romanoff, standing stone-faced beside her, had whispered, "We don't speak of the dead." She was too soft. But now, soft wasn't the word Tia would use. "Zane," she said, breath shallow, "I need access to Victor's personal vault, the one under the Verona estate, the one he swore no one but him could open." Zane looked up from the table where he'd been cleaning his gun. "I thought that place was leveled." "The top was, but that vault went 10 stories underground." He studied her. "What do you think's down there?" She looked him dead in the eye. "My origin story." Later. Verona estate ruins. The snow crunched under boots as Tia, Zane, and Luca made their way down what remained of the estate's west wing. Charred beams, ice-covered ash, ruined chandeliers. But behind the fallen stone fireplace, Tia pressed a small gold pendant into the carved lion's eye. A click echoed through the rubble, and the floor shifted. Stairs revealed themselves, spiraling down into darkness. Luca whistled. How many secrets did this family need? Zane didn't smile. More than they deserved. 10 stories below. The air was thick with damp silence. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as the 3 moved through rows of glass cases, sealed drawers and relics of power, forged passports, weapon prototypes, oil shares from silent cartels. It was a museum of a man who trusted no one. And then, at the very back, Tia stopped in front of a steel cabinet marked in Cyrillic. She translated out loud, "Lineage, Eastern bloodlines, our files only." Zane stepped forward, frowning. "That's not just your family name. That's a classification." Tia opened it. Inside were files. Dozens. All labeled with variations of the same name, Elena Rostova Romanoff. She opened the first and froze. 20 minutes later, Tia sat on the floor, hands shaking. Zane crouched beside her. "What is it?" Tia held out a black and white photo. It showed her mother, young, radiant, smiling, beside a man in a military uniform. Not Victor, not even Russian. The file was stamped, Project Ligature, authorized by Aurelius Group. Her maiden name wasn't just Rostova, Tia said. It was Rostova Kane. Her father was American intelligence. She was planted in Victor's orbit to bind 2 worlds, East and West. Luca rubbed his jaw. "She was a spy?" Tia shook her head. "She was bred, raised for it, not by one agency, by all of them. Someone, the architect, used her to infiltrate Victor before he ever built his empire." Zane looked at the document in her hand. "This project, Ligature, was designed to create bloodline convergence," Tia said softly, "to merge criminal dynasties and control them from the inside." She looked at Zane. "I was never just a Romanoff." Zane was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You were the blueprint." Back at Valenti HQ, Julian scanned the file Tia smuggled from the vault. "It's not just one operation," he said. "There were others, 8 across Europe. Ligature, Obsidian, Harrow, designed to infiltrate power structures, each with a female operative as the key." Zane narrowed his eyes. "And they all tie back to one funding source." Julian nodded. "Aurelius." Tia stepped back, breath catching. The architect didn't just build syndicates, he built bloodlines. Victor never knew the truth, she said. He thought he married Elena to gain American immunity, but really, he was the asset, she was the controller. Zane exhaled. So what are you? Tia met his eyes, the wild variable they didn't account for. Later that night, rooftop Zane leaned against the railing, staring at the skyline. He didn't look up as Tia approached. Do you hate me? She asked softly. No. Do you trust me? Zane turned. His gray eyes searched hers. I trust who you've chosen to be, not who they designed you to be. Tia blinked back the tightness in her chest. I don't want to be a blueprint. Then burn the draft. He stepped forward, cupped her jaw, voice low. We end this. Together. She nodded, not as a Romanoff, not as a daughter of a buried program, but as a woman who finally knew everything and chose to fight anyway. Final scene, the architect's domain. He watched the footage again. The vault, the reveal. Tia, frozen with the file in her hands. The woman with the phoenix tattoo stepped into the room. She knows, she said. The architect stared at the screen. Good. You're not worried? No, he whispered, because now she understands. He paused. She wasn't meant to destroy me. He smiled faintly. She was made to replace me. Chapter 34. The Others Like Me. Prague, Czech Republic. Black site. Ligature echo. The plane landed on the outskirts of the city in silence, cloaked by night and falsified air traffic records. Tia stepped off first, clothed in matte black tactical gear, her eyes hard, unreadable. Zane remained behind. This was her mission. Julian had uncovered the site's existence through decrypted Aurelius files, a post-ligature intelligence silo where the architect had stored the others. Women like Tia, operatives. He called them daughters. There were 6 still alive, former ligature agents, trained across different regions, each folded into syndicates like chess pieces. None had defected. Until now, they thought Tia was still part of the plan. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Inside Ligature Echo. The compound was clinical. White walls, minimal furniture. A temple to surveillance and stillness. As Tia moved through the halls, every security camera turned to follow her. She didn't blink. At the end of the corridor stood a single steel door. Beyond it, the agents. The guard opened it for her, nodding without a word. Tia stepped in. 6 women stood around a long black table. All in black. All beautiful. Cold. Controlled. One stepped forward. Blonde, tall, Russian-featured. Her codename was Vex. Tia, she said. Or should I say subject Ein? Tia kept walking. I don't respond to that name. Another agent, darker skin, Spanish accent, tilted her head. We heard you married a Valenti, merged the bloodlines, made the plan real. Tia stopped at the edge of the table. I didn't merge anything, I burned it. Vex raised an eyebrow. You sound emotional. Tia leaned in, voice low and sharp. You were designed to obey. I was designed to decide. A flicker of tension passed through the room. You're here to recruit us? Another asked. Tia shook her head. I'm here to warn you. The architect isn't your master anymore. He's your executioner. The second his empire slips, you become liabilities. Vex smirked. We were promised immunity. Tia tossed a dossier onto the table. Inside, photos of Subject 3, dead, Subject 5, disappeared. Their deaths staged as overdoses and disappearances. No more immunity, Tia said. Only erasure. Vex picked up the file, lips thinning. If we defect, we're targets. If you stay loyal, you're corpses. Back in NYC, Valenti HQ, Zane stood in the underground command room, staring at a map Julian projected on the wall. Cayo Paloma, Julian said, pointing to a small island off the Cuban coast. Used to be a CIA black site, then it vanished. New documents say it was bought by a private group. Aurelius, Zane muttered. Julian nodded. We traced offshore banking nodes that tie directly back to a vault hidden under the island. Physical server stacks, paper records, DNA catalogs. Luca stepped in from the side. The architect's real nerve center? Close as we've come. Zane narrowed his eyes. Then we send a message. No more digital dancing. We go there. We hit hard, and we take his spine. Back in Prague, Ligature Echo, the 6 women sat in silence. Tia stood before them like a mirror, one they didn't like. You don't have to become me, she said. You just have to stop becoming him. Why should we trust you? One asked. Tia stepped closer. Because I'm the only one who ever told you the truth. Vex was the last to move. She closed the dossier and slid it across the table. We're in. Hours later. Private call. Tia sat alone in a steel chair, headset in place. Zane's voice crackled into her ear. "How'd it go?" "They're not soldiers," she said. "They're weapons looking for a trigger. And did you give them one?" Tia smiled faintly. "I told them who they were made for. Then I told them who I was." Zane's voice warmed. "Mine," she whispered. "Always." Then he said, "We found the vault. Cuba, it's time." Final scene. Somewhere tropical, inside a sealed lab. The architect stood over a long table lined with cryo units, each one labeled with a number, each one holding a vial of blood. 9 of them were full. One was shattered. The label on the broken one read, "Subject Ikes." Behind him, the woman with the phoenix tattoo entered. "She's united the others," she said. He didn't turn. "She's not just rebelling." He placed the shattered vial gently into a metal case. "She's becoming." Chapter 35. The Island of Origins. Off the coast of Cuba, 2:41 a.m. The water was black and calm as the boats cut through it, silent engines churning beneath moonlight. Zane stood at the bow of the lead vessel, wind whipping through his black tactical jacket, his gray eyes fixed on the horizon. Cayo Paloma was just ahead, a speck of land shrouded in darkness, surrounded by razor-sharp coral and armed with military-grade surveillance. Tia crouched beside him, pistol holstered, headset live. She looked calm. Too calm. "You ready for this?" Zane asked. Tia didn't look at him. "I was born in the shadows of this place. It's time I burn it." Behind them, Luca and Vex led 2 other ligature defectors. They were tight, silent, deadly. Ex-operatives now loyal to Tia alone. Julian's voice buzzed in their ears from the satellite drone overhead. "Thermal confirms 6 hostiles on outer patrol. No motion inside the bunker entrance. You're clear to breach." Zane gave one short nod. "Let's bury a dynasty." Cayo Paloma, outer shell. The island was deceptively quiet. Low palms swayed in the wind, and the only sound was the crunch of boots on sand. The main compound was built into the cliffs, a brutalist monolith of stone and steel, camouflaged by years of abandonment. But the door? Reinforced titanium, biometric lock, and facial scan. Tia stepped forward and placed her hand on the scanner. A red light blinked. Scanning. Processing. Then, access granted. Zane raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" Tia smirked. "He forgot one thing. I'm still in his system." The door groaned open. The hallway beyond was long, white, and sterile. Cold air rushed out like a breath being held too long. They moved inside. Lower vault, 11th level. The descent was slow, elevator disabled. They climbed stairs slick with condensation, deeper than any bunker should go. Finally, they reached the last door. Julian's voice came through. "This is it. You're directly under the data vault. You've got 5 minutes before the satellite feed loses angle." Zane raised his weapon. "Time to kick the hive." Inside, it looked less like a server room and more like a museum of sin. Glass cases lined the walls, genetic vials, surgical blueprints, folders sealed with black wax. There were cryo units with names and bloodlines etched in silver. Subject 3, deceased. Subject Fa, neutralized subject. Ein, non-compliant. Tia walked past them slowly, her eyes hard. They weren't building daughters, she said. They were building successors. She stopped in front of one unit, larger than the rest. Inside, a steel box. Thick cables attached to its core. Julian came through the comm. "You're looking at the Nexus node. Everything the architect built, financial networks, identity clusters, recruitment protocols, is in that drive. Pull it, and you sever his reach." Zane nodded to Vex. "Do it." Vex moved fast, slicing through the security lock, but just before she pulled it free, an alarm screamed. Trap sprung, the lights flashed red, the floor shook. "Contact," Luca yelled. The hallway behind them exploded. Smoke, shrapnel, heat. From the shadows, armed men emerged. Not guards, ghosts, ex-military, silent. Trained for black ops, Zane dove, firing as he rolled. Tia dragged Vex back as bullets sprayed down the corridor. Luca took a shot to the arm but kept firing. Then, through the smoke, a voice. Smooth. Precise. "Impressive, Ms. Romanoff." The architect stepped through the flames, flanked by 2 of his personal guards. He wore no armor, just a black suit and gloves. Tia's blood turned to ice. Zane raised his gun. The architect smiled. "Still reactive, Don Valenti. Still a hammer in a world of keys." Tia aimed. "You should have killed me when I was still learning." "You weren't ready then," he said, "but you are now, just like your mother." "The truth unfolds." Tia froze. "You knew her?" "I made her." the architect said softly. Elena Rostova was my first success, a hybrid of intelligence and obedience, until she broke. He stepped forward. Just like you will. Zane's voice was low and deadly. Wrong family to threaten. The architect raised a small silver device from his pocket. One button. He pressed it. Every screen in the vault flickered to life. Footage played. Tia, at 6 years old, being trained in a dark room, monitored, conditioned, injected, corrected. Zane's face twisted in fury. Tia's hands began to shake. That's not me anymore, she whispered. The architect smiled like a father disappointed in his child. No, he said. That's what makes you dangerous. The war-turned Zane fired first. 3 shots. One clipped the architect's shoulder, but he vanished behind reinforced glass as smoke grenades detonated. Chaos erupted. Guards swarmed. Vex pulled the Nexus core from the unit and ran. Tia ducked under fire, grabbed a fallen guard's grenade, and flung it through the open vault as a wall of fire followed. Zane shouted into the comm. Extraction now, Julian answered. Rendezvous in 3, North Beach. They ran. Escape. The team made it out bloody but intact, the drive secured, the island burning behind them. But inside the boat, as they sped away from Cayo Paloma, Zane looked at Tia. Her hands were clenched, her eyes still on fire. What are you thinking? He asked. She looked at him and said one word, finish. Final scene, architect's private chamber. His suit was burned, his shoulder wrapped, but he smiled anyway, watching the vault footage. Tia, strong, furious, unbreakable. She's no longer my weapon, he whispered. The woman with the phoenix tattoo stepped beside him. No, she said, she's your reckoning. Chapter 36, The Devil's Real Name, Valenti HQ Underground Command Room. The Nexus drive was locked inside a titanium case surrounded by biometric sensors and double encrypted firewalls. Only 2 people could open it, Tia and the architect. Luckily, one of them was done obeying. Julian hovered at the central terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard as the drive's cold blue lights flickered. Decryption started. This thing is built like a military vault. Zane stood beside him, armed and wired, watching every screen in the room. Tia stood in front of the drive, breath still, expression unreadable. You good? Zane asked quietly. No, she replied, but I'm ready. She placed her palm on the scanner. The lock hissed, the drive opened, and the data poured out. The first wave, power maps. One screen lit up with charts, webs of shell corporations, ghost accounts hidden in Swiss banks, connections between arms dealers, blackmail rings, cyber surveillance programs, and silent donors linked to global governments. Zane narrowed his eyes. This isn't just underworld money, Julian replied. It's leverage. The architect wasn't building an empire, he was building blackmail insurance. Against who? Tia answered before either man could. Everyone. The second wave, the operative files, 6 files, each labeled by name and code, subject I through Ein, each detailing the psychological profile, training dates, handlers, and one section that made Tia go still. Childhood placement records. She clicked her own. And there it was, a name, not her own, Tatiana Kane, daughter of Elena Rostova and Lucas Kane, a former U.S. State Department attaché gone rogue in the early 90s, declared dead in 1997, except now his name appeared next to the tag, Program Designer. Tia's voice cracked. Lucas Kane, my father, designed ligature? Julian's hands hovered over the keys. He didn't just design it, he was the original architect, the one before the current figure stepped in. Zane turned to her. You knew him? I barely remember him. He left when I was a toddler. Victor said he died in a car crash. Zane's jaw clenched. Another lie. She shook her head slowly. Not just a lie, a cover. She opened a second file, and there it was. Program transfer. From L. Kane to Subject Wewen. Zane frowned. Subject Wewen? I thought you were Eins? I am, Tia said. Then who the hell is Wev? Julian clicked the file. A photo loaded. A woman. Tall, dark-haired, gloves. Tia went cold. The woman with the phoenix tattoo. The final layer, the architect's identity, buried deep inside a dead folder labeled Lazarus, the last encryption cracked. What appeared was simple. A government-issued ID card. Name, Gabriel Markov. Alias, the architect. Origin, NSA, CIA. Joint liaison. Clearance, phantom tier. Status. Officially deceased. 2014. Tia read the file aloud. He faked his death, went dark, then used Kane's framework to continue the program privately. Julian whispered. He's not just a ghost. He was the cleaner of cleaners, the one sent in when things got too messy, even for governments. Zane leaned over the monitor, until he stopped cleaning. Tia's eyes burned, and started collecting. Later that night, Zane's office. Zane poured a glass of bourbon and handed it to her. She didn't take it. "What now?" she asked. "You tell me," he said. "I thought Victor was the monster," she said. "Then I thought it was my mother. Then Cain. Now Markov." Zane stepped closer. "You can't kill ghosts." "I'm not here to kill a ghost," she whispered. "I'm here to burn down the entire machine." Elsewhere, a rooftop in Washington, D.C. Gabriel Markov stood watching the Capitol dome in the distance, his shoulder still bandaged beneath his coat. The woman with the phoenix tattoo stood beside him. "They decrypted the core," she said. "I know." "They have your name now," Markov smirked. "They had my name a long time ago. They just didn't know it mattered." She frowned. "And now," he turned to her, "now it's a war." Final scene, Tia's bedroom. She stood alone at the mirror, still dressed in black. No lipstick, no perfume, no armor, just truth. For the first time in her life, she said her real name out loud, Tatiana Kane. Then she looked into her own eyes and whispered, "You weren't born for him. You were made for me." Chapter 37, Capitol Lies, Washington, D.C., 6:45 p.m. The black Escalade rolled to a smooth stop outside the Hotel Horatio, a stone's throw from Capitol Hill. The kind of place where power met behind soundproof doors and called it diplomacy. Zane stepped out first, flawless in a tailored suit, his gray eyes sharp behind dark glasses. Tia followed. She wore no disguise, no mask, just a black dress, heels, and the face of a woman who no longer feared her name. Julian's voice whispered into their comms. "Senators Halston and Varelli are inside. They're part of the Lazarus cluster. Both voted for national surveillance expansions funded by Aurelius Holdings." Zane adjusted his cufflink. "Time to remind them what happens when you take the architect's coin." Tia glanced toward the Capitol dome. "I'm not here to make them confess," she said. Zane smirked. "What are you here for?" Tia's voice dropped, "To make them choose." Inside the hotel, presidential suite. The room was lavish but cold, lined with private security and brushed steel decor. Senator Halston stood near the bar, sipping scotch. Varelli lounged in a chair, reading an encrypted document on a tablet. They didn't flinch when Zane and Tia entered. Halston raised an eyebrow. "You were supposed to be dead in a fire outside Prague." Zane smiled. "That was just a rehearsal." Varelli leaned back. "And what are we rehearsing for now?" Tia stepped forward, pulled a flash drive from her clutch, and set it on the table. Julian's voice came through their comms. "That drive contains the Lazarus files. Every payment trail, every vote bot, every dead operative covered up with your signatures." Zane placed a hand on the back of Halston's chair. "We give this to the press. Your careers end. Your families, gone. Your legacy, rewritten in ash." Tia looked directly at Varelli. "But we don't want to destroy you. We want to reroute you." Halston's laugh was thin. "You want leverage." "No," Tia said. "We want blood back. Every drop you helped extract from people like me, you repay in votes, in confessions, in public collapse." Varelli tapped the tablet off. "What makes you think we won't just have you killed?" Zane leaned close, his voice low and lethal. "Because you tried." And smiled. Outside, Black Van Luca watched from across the street, sniper rifle ready, eyes scanning every rooftop. "They're stalling," he muttered into the mic. Julian replied from the surveillance van. "They're scared, but smart. They won't act until they believe we're bluffing." Luca grinned. "Good thing we never bluff." Back in the suite, Halston walked to the window, silent. Varelli remained still, calculating. Then Halston turned. "If we give you the architect's offshore accounts, his Senate liaisons, you let us walk?" Tia nodded. "In public, you'll resign for personal reasons. No media storm, no indictments, just vanish." Varelli stared at her. "You're Elena's daughter." Tia's blood froze. "You knew her?" "I did more than know her," he said. "She once told me you would either become a god or burn trying." Tia stepped closer, eyes unflinching. She was right. Hours later, Safe House Zane poured bourbon into 2 glasses. One for him, one for her. They hadn't spoken since the suite. Tia sat at the edge of the bed, still in that black dress, heels kicked off, her hair loosened around her shoulders. "You okay?" Zane asked. "No," she said, "but I'm clear." He sat beside her. "You said you'd make them choose." "I did," she whispered. "And they chose survival. That gives us time, not safety." Zane took her hand. "You gave up your name for this." "I gave up who I thought I was. but I'd do it again. He leaned close. You're still mine. She looked at him, voice cracking. Even if I was made for war? Zane kissed her, slow, deep, claiming. No one made you for anything. He pulled her against him. You chose me. Later that night, surveillance room. Julian uploaded the Lazarus files to 7 shadow feeds, enough to destabilize the architect's control network without full public release. Luca stepped in, holding a burner phone. Anonymous drop, voice modulated, came direct from DC server. Want to hear it? Julian hit play. You think this ends with exposure. It doesn't. This ends when I say it ends. Come to me, Tia. Come home. The file cut off. Zane clenched his jaw. Julian looked at him. He's not scared. No, Zane growled. He's baiting us. Tia stood in the doorway. I'm done answering him, she said, but I'm ready to finish the war. Final scene. Architect's private bunker, Gabriel Markov, reviewed the surveillance feed of the Senate suite, watched Tia's face as she walked out. She's nearly at her limit, he said. The woman with the phoenix tattoo, subject Wiz, leaned forward. And what happens when she hits it? Markov smiled. Then the real weapon activates. 38. The final blueprint. Geneva, Switzerland, 3 days later. Snow fell in perfect silence across the glinting skyline of Geneva, brushing rooftops and softening steel. Beneath it, buried under the sterile facade of an AI development facility called Luminous Labs, lay something far darker. Not algorithms, not machines, Markov's final program. Not digital, not encrypted, biological. Tia stood in the hangar of their safe house outside the city, suited up in full black tactical gear, hair pulled back, face emotionless. Julian stood beside the table, pointing at the blueprint. This isn't a data center, it's a gene lab, he said. He's trying to rebuild ligature, in flesh. Zane studied the architectural overlay. Sub-basement, triple-vaulted lab, temperature-controlled, protected by facial ID and triple passcode fail-safes. We breach from below. Tia said nothing. Julian looked at her. You okay? She nodded slowly. I know what this place is. Luca loaded weapons into duffel bags. Another vault of ghosts? Tia's voice was quiet. No, this one's filled with the future. Flashback. 11 years ago, a memory unspooled in her mind. A hallway, white walls, the sharp scent of antiseptic and control. A man walked beside her, tall, gloved, calm. Gabriel Markov. You're not like the others, he'd said. You're the alpha, the inheritance. Tia, young, terrified, obedient, had looked up. What if I don't want to be? He'd smiled faintly. Then I'll make someone who does. Back to present, Geneva perimeter. Zane and Tia crouched near the drainage tunnel beneath the Luminous Labs facility. 1,000 meters of concrete separated them from Markov's sanctum. The team was ready. Every camera scrambled, every alarm on loop. Julian's voice came through the headset. All secondary systems are down. You're green. Tia looked to Zane. You know if I don't come out? You're coming out, he growled. She touched his chest plate, her hand pressing against his heart. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of dying as someone I don't recognize. Zane cupped her face. Then remember this. No matter what he made you for, you were born mine. She smiled. Then they moved. Inside Luminous Labs, sub-basement level 3. The air was cold, not from climate control, but containment. Zane blew the last internal door with a breaching charge, and the corridor yawned open into a room lined with tanks, human-sized, backlit in eerie blue. Inside floated dozens of infant clones, not yet conscious, not fully grown, but real. Luca's voice cracked. Holy hell. Tia moved slowly down the row. Each tank bore a plaque, ligature beta subject 12, subject 13. One tank bore her mother's features, another bore hers, younger, engineered, perfected. Zane watched her carefully. Tia... But she didn't stop walking. She reached the center of the room, where a sealed black capsule stood upright. Inside it, a young woman, mid-20s, green eyes, brown hair, identical to her. Tia's breath hitched. The file clipped to the case read, Designation, Tatiana Kane, V2.0. Activation date, Controller, Architect Code LM001. Julian's voice came in over the feed. What the hell is that? Tia whispered. Insurance. Zane moved beside her. He made a backup of you. No, she said. He made a replacement. Suddenly, alarm, red light filled the room. A mechanical hiss echoed across the lab. Doors locked. Behind them, a secondary door opened, and Gabriel Markov entered, flanked by 2 guards and subject a weapon. He didn't raise a weapon, just his voice. You made it, he said. Tia turned to face him. I should have known you'd run to your endings. He smiled. You still think you're not me? Zane aimed his rifle. One more step and I'll put you down like the dog you are. Markov ignored him. He looked only at Tia. I gave you options. I gave you legacy, and you fell for love. Tia stepped forward. You don't get to define love. You define control. Markov nodded at the tank beside her. That one won't make your mistakes. Tia didn't blink. She won't get the chance. And with a sudden motion, she fired her pistol through the tank's control panel. The clone began to spasm. Systems shut down. Biogel drained. Markov's face finally changed. Rage. Tia turned to him, voice steel. You can clone a body, but you'll never program a soul. Markov raised his gun. Zane fired first. Gunfire erupted. Luca and Vex took out the guards. Zane shot Subject Devon in the shoulder, dropping her to her knees. Tia advanced on Markov, pinning him against the lab console. He coughed, blood leaking from his mouth. They'll make more. Tia pressed the barrel of her gun to his chest. Then I'll keep burning them. He met her eyes, smiled one last time. You were perfect. Bang. Tia pulled the trigger. Later, extraction. The lab burned behind them, ignited by Luca's charges. Tia stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the smoke curl into the sky. Zane stood behind her, silent. She didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, he's gone. Zane nodded. And so is the blueprint. She turned to him. I don't know what comes next. He took her hand. Then we make something that's never existed before. Final scene, 1 week later. In a black vault in the Alps, a screen blinked to life. Subject, bandaged, breathing, but watching Tia's face on a news broadcast, watching the world begin to ask questions. And then, smiling. Chapter 39, The Mirror That Breathes, Zurich, 1 week later. The world was no longer quiet. The media roared with headlines about Luminous Labs, its disappearance in a fire, whispers of experimental cloning, and buried black site records that had begun leaking, carefully, strategically. Tia watched the coverage in silence, standing in the penthouse window of the Valenti Zurich base, arms crossed, robe hanging loose over bare shoulders. Zane walked in, phone pressed to his ear. 5 more resignations from the Senate subcommittee. 2 generals are lawyered up, he said, voice calm. Julian says we cracked the outer layer. Tia didn't look at him. That's the problem, Zane. It was just the outer layer. He hung up. They're scared. They're still breathing. Undisclosed location, northern France. The woman known as Subject Weven peeled the bandages from her shoulder. The bullet wound had stopped bleeding. The scar would remain faint, surgical, almost invisible, just like her. She stood in front of a mirror, examining herself. Same green eyes, same bone structure, same walk, posture, tone. But where Tia had fire, she had calculation. Where Tia had trauma, she had clarity. Tia had rebelled against her blueprint. Subject Weven planned to perfect it. She walked to the terminal and activated the next phase. Project Obelisk. Status initiated. Her eyes flicked to a still image. Zane Valenti's face, frozen in the middle of a security feed. If she won't finish the legacy, she whispered, I will. With him. Zurich Valenti Compound War Room. Julian paced in front of the digital wall, a dozen blinking red markers now scattered across the map. These are all second-generation ligature labs, he said. Not Markov's. They were built after he went dark. Zane frowned. You're saying someone else was funding him? Or waiting to take his place? Tia leaned over the table, her jaw clenched. What's Obelisk? Julian hesitated. That's the thing. It's not in Markov's files. Luca entered the room, tossing a dossier on the table. Obelisk isn't a file. It's a list. They opened the folder. Inside, 20 names. High-ranking global influencers, each marked with a code, slated for seed. Zane read one aloud. What the hell is seed? Tia's voice was ice. They weren't building soldiers this time. She lifted the next page. They were building replacements. Hours later, rooftop balcony, Zane found her where he always did when she needed silence, watching the skyline. Talk to me, he said. Tia didn't answer right away. Then, she's out there. Subject says, she's not hiding, Tia said. She's waiting. She thinks she can finish the mission, become me, or the version of me that obeys. Zane moved behind her, strong arms wrapping around her waist. She's a reflection, he murmured into her hair. Not a threat. Tia shook her head. No. She's a copy that still believes the original is broken. She turned to him. She'll come for you. Zane smiled darkly. Let her. Meanwhile, Milan, Italy. In a grand hotel under a fake name, Subject Wiz met with an old contact, former Aurelius. Disavowed, bought back in. He laid a photo on the table. Intel from Geneva says Valenti's private network now routes through Zurich and Lisbon. He's expecting a cleanup operation. She stared at the photo of Zane. "You're wrong," she said. "He's expecting me." The man hesitated. "What are you going to do?" She smiled faintly. "I'm going to give him what the original never could." "And what's that?" "Obedience." Zurich, that night. Tia couldn't sleep. She paced the hallway of the compound, thoughts racing. She had burned the blueprint, ended the architect, destroyed the clone, but Subject 11 wasn't a clone. She was a perfect alternate, made from the same blood but free from the damage, free from Victor, from Elena, from childhood trauma. Tia had scars, XI had software, and that made her dangerous. Because she didn't want to destroy the world. She wanted to inherit it. Final scene, a black letter Z. Zane entered the room with a letter in hand. "No postage," he said. "Just dropped off at the gate, addressed to you." Tia took it, opened it. Inside, only 5 words, "He doesn't belong to you," and one photo. Zane, asleep, taken from inside their room. Chapter 40. The One Who Chose Zurich, 3:03 a.m. The lights in the Valenti compound flickered once, then died. Zane was on his feet instantly, gun drawn, sweeping the room as Julian's voice crackled in through the comms. "Power grid's been rerouted. Security's offline. We've got company." Tia already knew who. "Lock the interior doors," she said, strapping a blade to her thigh. "She's not here for the compound." Zane met her eyes. "She's here for me." "No," Tia whispered. "She's here for us." Moments later, North Wing corridor. The sound of bootsteps echoed down the marble hallway. Slow, certain. Tia stood at the center, black clothing clinging to her frame, hair tied back, no armor, just steel in her eyes. Subject Lewin stepped out of the shadows. She was identical. Same face, same stance, but colder, emptier, not broken, never bent. "Tatiana," was said, almost fondly. Tia didn't flinch. "That name doesn't belong to you." Smirked. "It never belonged to you either. It belonged to the program." "You're not a legacy," Tia said. "You're a loose file." Xka stepped forward. "And you're a corrupted one." She reached for the pistol at her side. Tia beat her to it. Bang. Ducked. Bullet grazed her shoulder. She rolled forward, slashing upward with a blade. Tia blocked it, sparks flying from steel on steel. The hallway lit up in sudden, violent flashes of movement. In the command room, Zane and Julian watched through the emergency drone feed. "She's not just mimicking her," Julian muttered. "She is her. Move for move." "No," Zane said coldly. "She's trying to be her." Julian looked at him. "So what happens if she wins?" Zane's answer was immediate. "She won't." Back in the corridor, the 2 women slammed into the wall, blades locked between them. Exide hissed through her teeth. "You could have ruled everything. He would have followed you." Tia shoved her back, breath ragged. "I don't want a kingdom made of control." "Then why keep him?" "Because I love him." Tia's expression cracked. Something like grief. Something like rage. He was never supposed to choose. Tia's blade arced, slicing Xia across the ribs. "He didn't," Tia said. "I did." Flashback, years ago, young Tia, a sterile training room. The architect asking, "Do you know the difference between a weapon and a woman?" Tia answering, "A woman chooses when to fire." Back in the present, Swan lunged. Tia twisted. The final blow was fast, clean. Tia's blade found Sai's side. She gasped, fell to her knees. Tia stood over her, both of them covered in blood, breath ragged. Sai looked up, eyes wide. "You think this ends with me?" Tia crouched beside her, voice low. "No, this ends with me." Shay's head dropped, and it was done. 10 minutes later, private suite, Zane sat on the bed, bleeding from a graze to his side, jaw tight. He looked up as Tia walked in. He was still covered in the dust and blood of war. He stood and just stared at her. She stepped into him, slow, silent, their foreheads touched. Neither said a word, until Zane whispered, "You won." "No," she murmured back. "We did." Then she kissed him, not to reclaim him, not to prove anything, but because she chose to. 1 week later, Rome, the world spun on. No one ever learned about the architect, or ligature, or the twins who tore down an empire. But beneath the public quiet, the powerful shifted in their seats. Some stepped down, some went missing. And in the silence that followed, Tia and Zane rebuilt. Not an empire, not a family, but a fortress built on love, on blood, on choice. Rooftop, sunset, Tia stood in a silk dress, barefoot, hair loose in the breeze. Zane came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "We could disappear," he said. "We already did," she replied. He kissed her neck. "What do we call this?" She leaned back into him. a new legacy. Then she turned to him, eyes soft but strong, and this time, it's ours. Thanks for listening to Taken by the Dawn. If you made it to the end, you're a real one. Drop a in the comments if Zane owns your soul too. Don't forget to subscribe for more original romance audiobooks, because we're just getting started.